right, folks, it is 6:53 and this meeting is called to order. Everyone's so quiet, it's strange. So I'll start with reading out the Indigenous Solidarity Statement. So we'd like to acknowledge that Concordia University is located on unceded Indigenous lands. The Ganyan-Gehaga Nation is recognized as the custodians of the lands and waters on which we gather today. Montreal is historically known as a gathering place for many First Nations. Today it is home to a diverse population of Indigenous and other peoples. We respect the continued connections with the past, present, and future in our ongoing relationships with Indigenous and other peoples within the Montreal community. So before we get into anything else, I received requests for excusal from James and Jared, who can't make the meeting tonight. Maha?
Motion to omnibus excusal.
Okay, do we have a second? Aman. All right, is there any opposition to excusing James and Jared? All right, perfect. So just some housekeeping, and this isn't directed at anybody, but I just say it every time there's elections, so council's obviously not the place for elections talk. And even so, it's not campaign period anymore, so just keep council elections free, and everything will be good. Okay, so at this point, we are on approval of the agenda. Yes, Hannah?
I would like to pull the Academic Advocacy and the General Coordinator votes.
Okay. Put that at the end of substantive.
Oh, and is it possible to do them after presentations?
Yeah, they're at the end of the substantive motions. Thank you. Yes, Melissa.
I would like to move to have ComSkill be able to do their presentation.
Okay.
As well as have the discretionary fund documents approved.
Okay. Anything else? Maha, I believe your motion, you just have to say you want it on the agenda.
Yes. Motion to introduce the, I think we called it the electoral reform motion. Yeah.
And as well, is everyone okay with going through the agenda points that have external presenters first? All right, perfect. So that being said, we can move to approve the agenda and all items under consent. Maha? Okay, do we have a second? Naomi? Is there any opposition to approving the agenda? Perfect, so that carries unanimously. And at this point, we are on the presentation, so I will give the floor to the CUAC.
Hi guys, so we're with part of the organizing committee for the Communication Undergraduate Academic Conference, or QAC. Our conference will be bringing together undergraduate students from Concordia's comms program as well as other comms programs from Eastern Canada and Northeastern United States. The main objective of the conference will be for the students to share their work, build academic relationships, as well as community build through media, sustainability discourses, and effective change through communication technologies, as well as we'll be having a keynote speaker who will come and will share their work in the related field and how it ties into sustainability and climate change, as well as feeling that sort of ties into initiatives taken by the CSU as well. And you can go to the next slide.
So this is most of the reason we're here, is that we are requesting funding from the CSU. I should note just off the bat that unfortunately we were sort of invited here on fairly last minute, so this is not a totally up-to-date budget. This was the one that we sent out with our original round of requests to committees and to external funding bodies, so there are a couple things that will have changed. The broad overview is that this is the first year of the conference. It's the first of its kind in the region, and so we're really trying to make sure that this can establish itself right off the bat as sort of a place for students, undergraduate students in communications to come. So we're trying to make sure that it's actually, it's an attraction, and that especially if you're coming from Boston, New York, something like that, that you might want to come back or tell your friends to come back. So with that in mind, the general breakdown is that we have, as you see, sort of speaker fees. Well, this is just travel expenses, living expenses. I should note the one change that we have made, and that unfortunately is not reflected here, is that we are hoping to add a $500 honorarium for our speaker. This is especially due to the fact that since doing this, we started looking into which speakers we might want to have that would fit with our theme, and a lot of the people that we're looking at are especially Indigenous academics and young Indigenous academics in many cases, and we want to make sure that they're properly remunerated for their work and not just, I mean, it's great that we can at least ensure that they aren't paying for being here, but it'd be great if we could pay them to be here. And then we would also adjust some of the food costs to account for that. Generally speaking, the most important bit for tonight is we're requesting $1,700 from the CSU overall. Our original request was for $1,200. That extra $500 is for that speaker fee. We had originally requested it from three different, the SPF and two different committee funds. Unfortunately, there have been problems. We've been sort of bounced around between committees, told that we should apply, told by one that we should apply to the other, things like that. So we are coming to you today mostly to say we have a conference that we think will be highly beneficial to students at Concordia, students in our program. We know that, and we hope that you guys know the CSU, and we're hoping that you can help us fund it and figure out where we should be going for that. So, if you have any questions?
Yes, Arad?
Which funds did you, committee funds, did you apply to, and what were the reasons that they said that they bounced you
The
around?
original amounts, so the original was the Special Project Fund, which just in general,
Okay,
which just in general, I think it's benefits Concordia students, the Student Life Fund for similar reasons, and the Loyola Committee funding because we are a Loyola-based group, so it's a big Loyola event.
Yeah, I know, but you said they bounced you around, and what was the reasoning that they said that this fund is not for you, for
To
example?
be entirely honest, I was the one applying to other funds. There was another member of our committee who was doing that, but I think Eduardo, who may have been sending some of these emails, might be able to help clarify.
Thank you. Yeah, you are. Yeah. Well, it was kind of the same time.
Yeah, I just wanted to explain because they did apply the special projects funding, and because both Christian's here, but Ama and Esther aren't, who were at the meeting, and they had decided that they wanted to send them to speaker series since the majority of their costs were for speakers. As you can see, they applied for $500. Initially, it was an outright rejection. They said just go to speaker series for the $500. Then we rebrought it to talk about it because I said that possibly we could cover other things that aren't speaker series related, and we ended up granting them $100 out of their requested $500, with the reason being, if I recall, that they didn't want double dipping between too many funds. I personally, had I received the grant request for $500, I would have given them all $500 from my special projects funding. But obviously the other members aren't here to really defend their judgment at the moment. So I just want to clear that up, what happened with our committee at least.
Thank you. Mary? Yes.
Who's the one that drafts the speaker series budgets?
I believe it's Isaiah that was composed. So Isaiah is also not here to talk on speaker series, and I don't know if did they view?
Right, thank you.
Respond
Yeah.
for one moment, just to note, maybe this is a more general note. Part of the reason we're here actually is because we wanted to get speaker series funding, but speaker series, at least last time I checked, is not listed as one of the funds that external groups can directly apply to. So that's why we were a little bit confused when we got the email, and I was eventually able to read through bylaws and figure out where that was coming from, but it's not. My understanding is that you folks would have to be the ones for speaker series, so that was our trepidation.
Thank you. Mary?
You explained like the budget and everything, but what's the purpose of the conference? What's the topic being discussed?
Right. It's an undergraduate conference, so it's relatively broad. We do have a theme for this year, which sort of as Raggy touched upon, we're trying to focus on sort of sustainability discourses and sustainability within communications. So especially there are discussions around infrastructure and communications, around social movements, and that sort of thing. So that's the broad theme, and that's especially what our speaker will be focusing on. That said, the advice that we've gotten from other student groups who organize undergraduate conferences, as well as from a lot of our profs, is to try to keep it broad because this really is the only conference of its kind in the region. So we don't want to exclude people who, we don't want to not give people the opportunity because their work doesn't have enough touch on it.
Thank you. Maha?
So just to clarify, will this event, would you be selling tickets, or will this be free, and who would be accessible to the event? Is it only for Concordia students, or is it open to all undergrads?
It will be open, mostly on a registration basis, so with priority being given to communications students. We are also, the call for papers is open to anybody in any program, but mostly is for communications students, not only at Concordia, but from other universities. It is exclusively Concordia organized, funded, but we're trying to sort of build a broader academic community. In terms of tickets, we're trying to make sure that it's accessible to everybody. So we are applying to as many funds as we can to try to make sure that we can have a successful conference, but that doesn't have financial barriers, especially for people who already may be having to come from out of town and who may be paying transportation costs and that kind of thing.
So you're trying to make it free?
Yes.
Thank you. Hannah?
Can I motion to send this to Speaker Series?
Sorry.
To send this to Speaker Series Fund because we still have 4,000 in internal collaboration grants left in there.
Do you want a motion to take it from, to grant them the money?
I don't know, either to us have a meeting, an external committee to fund this, or to just, if we can't take it out directly.
Okay, yeah, you can
Send to
move
external, yeah.
to refer it to external committee. Perhaps Isaiah can offer some clarity as to how, I just don't want council to vote on something that you folks could do in your committee.
I just recommend, I guess previously, just a formal application, and for the amount, if I'm not mistaken, 1,200.
So it was our understanding that we are not able to formally apply to the Speaker Series Fund. It's not an externally accessible fund, at least per your website. Part of the reason we're here.
Oh, well, because you apply, what it is it's overseen by external committees, so it's
Right.
like external, so if you apply to external committee, we would be the ones to decide whether or not it goes through Speaker Series or external.
Perfect. So, Hannah, your motion to refer to external is in order.
Refer this to external committee.
All right, do we have a second? Amma, is there any opposition to referring this to external committee?
Just on the basis that there's still other places where they wanted money from, so there's still a little bit more talking to be had outside of the speaker's part.
Can I motion to move this to refer this to external and Loyola committee, or all the other people? I don't know, sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what Isaiah said. No, it's just because there's a lot of noise. So I would like to know, is your motion saying that we agree to giving them money? I'm sorry, I'm just a bit confused at what's...
Actually, Isaiah, could you just explain this to the room? Because I'm also...
Just point of personal information. How much is the amount exactly?
$1,700.
1,700. So I motioned that they make a formal application to the External Mobilization Committee, and we review it.
Can I
Because
Yeah, do you have a question?
Sorry, could you confirm that you can't do, because I think they would have done that if they could have, but I think that Nick was saying they can't do that.
Well, because how external committee works is we have a form, right? They apply, and then they can, and because external committee is responsible for Speaker Series and mobilization, we can decide, well, does it come out of, because we have grants in Speaker Series, but it's just that you go through external committee for whatever reason.
Thank you, you guys. Sorry.
Hannah?
Are we not able to just, do a motion to fund it right now through that budget line? Is that possible?
Because one, it should go at least to the committee level, so at least the committee reviews it, because instead of council going directly into budget lines, because we have internal collaboration grants, which this could go through, and then there's, they can get the money from external committee. It's not like a roadblock, it's just more so they just have to apply.
Yeah, I'll just give the floor to Patrick because you're the academic and advocacy.
I would just recommend this goes to committee so that they can have a chance.
Okay, so the motion to send to committee is in order, correct?
Yep,
Your
it's
committee.
in order.
Okay, perfect. All right, yes, Chris?
I motion to send it to, which committee is it?
Oh, Hannah had already,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect.
Can I ask
Yeah.
a point of information?
Yes.
Just because there's a timing thing here, because we had applied to committees a month and a half ago, and we've sort of been trying to figure out where, this conference is happening in a couple months. I'm just wondering
It's in a
when
couple-
external committees can be able to meet, because we're at the point where we
Next
really need to
Wednesday.
start. Okay.
So this month?
Thank you.
Or not?
Arad?
I rescind.
Okay, Melise?
So I also have received the application for Loyola committee, but I've been putting out when to meets, at least on my committee level, and no one's been able to meet for like the last month and a half. And this is something that I am personally interested in funding with my committee, but just, we aren't meeting, and like, it's true, like, I got the thing like back in October, and like, they're already doing call outs for submissions, so like, if I put on another when to meet, it's gonna be after finals, and at that point, it's not gonna be very helpful for them. So like, I feel like there's some funds where like, maybe it is possible to speak about it, like, only Elias and I are here from our committee, and then one of our members are gone, so going into quorum is now difficult, XYZ. I'm okay with giving 350. I don't know what my fellow member thinks about that, but I would be interested in at least starting some of that granting process now.
Thank you.
Arad?
You're next on speakers list.
Okay, well, I guess my question is more to you, but also to you too. So my understanding so far is that like this total budget, they're just asking for like 1,707, right?
Yeah.
1,007, which is broken down in such way, which can all come out of speaker series. And I'm not sure what exactly the point you were making. So we can grant part of it? What are
Because
you
it's
trying
not, they only wanted to give the honorarium portion out of the speaker series.
I mean, if, just in terms of reimbursements, if we can get it all on one budget line that we can just apply to, that would be the most convenient thing, I can say, but.
Specifically,
I
like,
don't know.
$500 was
Yeah, go ahead.
honorarium.
Yeah.
So follow up to whomever can answer. How much of the 1,700 can go through speaker series?
All of it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Aman?
I want to mandate that the motion goes in a specific timing, like to not goes to whenever the committee will meet, to put like a
Oh, like
a
to add an amendment?
Yes, a timing on it, yeah,
I mean, you
specify
said you're
timeframe.
meeting Wednesday, right?
I'll put out the Wednesday meet as soon as this jacket comes off, and then as soon as they're ready, like.
Is that okay? Just informally?
I mean, if y'all.
If he's okay with it.
Yeah.
All right, perfect.
Can I
Yeah, go
request
ahead.
perhaps, would it be possible in some way for this presentation to qualify as the submission, or for this motion to qualify as the submission, because it gets,
Well,
Do you wanna
I apologize
respond?
for being late, but from my understanding, the money is tied to the positions bill. So if you outlined, like the reason I say formal application is like you have to outline which position you're meeting. And so it's like if in the presentation you were like, this is a project because this position, then that could be a formal application. If not, then it's just.
so as we did mention, it's, our theme this year focuses on sustainability in particular, and we're also trying to get speakers who can speak to the intersection of communications, sustainability, and indigenous activism.
Thank you.
So I think it should be pretty well known.
Maha?
So, two things. One, to answer your question, I think that you were directing at Isaiah. Even though you have come and presented this to council, you will still have to submit a formal application just through external, like we're still gonna have to go through the proper procedure, but at least it'll be quicker because Isaiah is at least now, and the committee, whoever's here from there, is at least now familiar with this, and you guys can just answer some few questions. So that'll at least be a speedier process. Now, I motion for $350 to be.
There's already a motion.
Oh, there is? All right, perfect. So then in that case, I call the question on it.
You can't call it out.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I could push in.
I call the question.
Okay, the motion on the table is to refer this to the external and mobilization
Point of
committee.
information, what was the $350 referring to?
The Loyola committee.
Right now,
That was the motion.
the motion on the table is to refer this to, that doesn't mean that other things can't be done, it just means that this will go to the external and mobilization committee, which I think,
Can I make an amendment to that?
Yeah,
I mean,
There's no point.
like
in
there's,
making
yeah, we can deal with this after. Okay, yeah, on a side note as well, folks, it's really important that you submit your documents on time, or else whatever cluster just happened will continue happening. So that being said, is there any opposition to referring this to the external and mobilization committee?
I'm a bit confused.
Yes, do you have a question?
Does that mean that money can't come from Loyola?
No, absolutely not. It's just this will go, like, some has to come from external, so it will go to external, and then other monies can come from other places as well.
Is it possible to amend just on the basis that I know for sure Loyola committee will not meet in time?
You
and-
technically can't amend a referral to committee under Robert's rules.
Okay.
So,
Let's just make a motion after this.
yeah, it's Yeah, we'll just do this quickly. Okay, is there any opposition to referring this to the External and Mobilization Committee? Okay, perfect. So that carries. And the speakers list is open. Elise?
Okay. Could I also motion for having $350 of the total request go to Loyola budget, because we do have money and we don't get very many very specific Loyola like questions, so I would enjoy funding this.
Okay, do we have a second? Patrick? Okay, is there?
Point of
yes?
order, sorry. Could we add to the motion that the budgetary impact is no?
Yes, we can. Okay. So is everyone is consider the amendment friendly? Okay, perfect. So in that case, is there any discussion to be had about allocating 350 it was from the Loyola, what do you call it? Loyola Fund? Or? Loyola Initiatives, okay.
Yeah.
Is there any opposition to that? All right, perfect. So that carries unanimously. Is there any more discussion on the CUAC topic? All right, perfect. Well, thank you very much for coming out to council. And yeah, I'm sure you and Isaiah will have a lot to talk about.
We can do it as veggies if you want.
All right, so at this point we are on 5B, which is Sustainability Coordinator. And Chris, this one's yours.
Hi, everybody. So as promised, there is a sustainability coordinator candidate here today. His name's Jordan. I would say the best way to proceed is we first go into closed session. We could all take a look at his CV, discuss things, then call Jordan in for some questions. In closed session, we could agree what those questions are. Invite Jordan back into the room, ask questions, send him out, make our decision, and that way we use up the minimal time of Jordan's night with this. So I motion to do that.
Was that a motion to enter closed session?
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay, second, perfect. Okay, is there any opposition to entering closed session? Okay, perfect. So in that case, that carries unanimously, and I'd just like to ask anyone who's not executive counselor, myself, minute keeper, judicial board, or academic caucus to please leave the room.
Can I do an amendment also about the?
Motion to enter open session, even though we already did. Isaiah?
I second.
Seconded by Elizabeth. Okay, so is there any opposition to being in open session? Okay, so I just need a motion to ratify the minutes of closed session. Naomi, do we have a second? Hannah, is there any opposition to ratifying closed? Perfect. So in that case, we can move on to Welcome Week, and Eduardo, this one is yours.
Yep. So, as everyone here may know, my summer was doing Welcome Week. It was quite the adventure. I loved it quite a lot. And this is basically going to be the most condensed summary of what is one of the most massive things on campus. So let's do this. So right away, first thing we need to do is come up with some goals on Welcome Week. This is what me and Michelle spent our first training doing. So one of the main things is I want to increase visibility of CSU on campus. As you may know, we aren't the most visible of all the faculty associations or of any association. The second thing is I really want to develop a brand to CSU, so something that people would look at us and know what we are talking about. When you say CSU, what does that pop into your head? A lot of people wouldn't have anything that popped into their head. So I really wanted to get a brand associated with us. Something that Michelle did not do, and I want to do, is I want to carry on the momentum of Welcome Week into other CSU activities. So the CSU does a lot of really good things, but oftentimes Welcome Week is kind of like just a one-off event. There's a bunch of fun events, everyone enjoys them, but it doesn't lead people to come in and keep on engaging with the CSU after that. The big one, as we've said multiple times, the budget is tight this year, so I really was strict on this, and I really want to remain under budget. Reach as many students as possible. Granted, easy one, just get as many students in it as possible and enjoyable. So for increasing visibility, one of the main goals I wanted to do was get a lot more social media presence for the CSU, and through Welcome Week we actually had a 13.08% increase and also exactly 1,600 more likes, which made me really happy because it was exact number, like 1,600, I really like that. Instagram was the big one, we went up 41.34% as well. And if you look at our graph, this is basically the graph of the CSU over the last 2 years on likes and follows on our Facebook page. I'm an engineer, so I go into the numbers a lot. This is my thing. As you can see, this was 2 years ago, right after their welcome week. They were about just over 11,000. They were about 11,200. At the end of orientation last year, they had crossed just to about 12,000. And by the time I got the CSU social media under me, it was at 12,200. That means in 2 years, we only got 1,000 new followers, which is obviously very bad because every time you're putting out a Facebook post, you're saying that you're representing 36,000 students, but in reality, you're only touching 1,000 of them. And for those of you that realize, that means that there's like the average program is 3 years, so this goes back 3 years. So that means that we really aren't talking to many students. The majority of our followers have actually graduated, which doesn't really help when I'm saying that there's a cool event on campus and all these people are at work because they're not coming to these cool events. So then you could see what I did during Welcome Week. So I really pressed this hard, and we basically got 1,600, which means that we got 1.5 times what they spent 2 years beforehand doing. So now we could collectively say that we have, when we put out a Facebook post, about 3,500 people engaged, which if you compare that, I didn't put those up here, but you compare that with the faculty associations, that's about 20% of what the faculty associations get on their overall, but we don't know how many of the faculty association likes are actually still engaged in school also because they might have graduated as well. So basically to say this one is absolutely ridiculous numbers, and I'm very proud of it. Next. CSU brand. So I wanted a lot of different merchandise that people would have around, and this is without a doubt the thing I'm most proud of because I wanted a lot of things that people would go around, carry, be visible, and I brought some of them over for the counselors today if they would like to have some. So if you would like, we have phone sleeves to stick on the back of your phone and lanyards so you could represent the CSU. And this is also really good because people wear them, people see them, they're visible, people ask questions, what is the CSU? What is the Concordia Student Union? And especially since you are counselors, you actually could give them probably a better answer than most people as to what we do. But it becomes a talking point, people see a lot of what we're doing. So this is basically all the things we handed out. So you can see agendas, tote bags, metal straws, lanyards, route pencils, ceramic mug, cardboard pens, phone sleeves, bamboo toothbrushes, and organic soap. And we also added one more that I forgot to put on the list, which is the classic condoms. Oh, and I forgot the pencil cases. Those things were awesome.
Did you bring condoms?
Yeah, we also handed out condoms.
You didn't bring it for us?
What? Not CSU branded condoms.
Okay. Sorry, I don't want to, sorry.
Yeah, okay. Winter orientation league. Next, Desiree. So the agendas have a separate budget line in our code, so they didn't come under orientation. But this was our big pushing point. Our agendas were awesome. We handed out over 3,000 at orientation, and more importantly, we actually ran out of agendas.
No, you didn't.
2 weeks into school.
No, you didn't.
Yes, we did.
It's
No,
not Loyola.
Forget Loyola.
Okay.
Loyola has like no joke 30 agendas left. Don't even start with me. But anyways, we handed out all the agendas, which is something that actually has not happened in a super long time. Actually, our first week was throwing out all last year's agendas. What we got? About 2,000 of them that we threw out, which is a huge waste of money. So we actually handed out all of them, and people would come in and see where are the agendas, and we'd be like, we have no more money for more agendas. So cool. Another thing that was really cool was on our first day at John Molson, we were handing out agendas, and some people from John Molson wanted to like come in on our turf and start handing out agendas too. And people would literally come in line, look at the John Molson agenda, look at the CSU one, and get in line for the CSU one because it was gorgeous. And Mari and Miha and Marin did an excellent job. They stayed till 2 a.m. to finish those agendas. So those agendas were absolutely killer. Tote bags, we handed out tote bags. It's a classic from all the other years. Something that I did differently is because we put a lot of emphasis on sustainability. So I actually reused last year's tote bags as well, not to make them go to waste. I took them, I had them sent back for reprinting to cover up all the dates that were on it. And I handed those out as well as sustainability tote bags, and everyone got told the story when they took one. And I actually don't have one, which is annoying because I wanted to keep one for me. Next. So this was last year's tote bag that we repurposed. So we put our campaign logo of If Not Now When. We also crossed out this little bar so it had all dates. And this is the one they designed this year with a nice little flower inside of what was initially supposed to be a globe, but then we just turned it into a sphere and it looked really cool, so we kept it. Next. Another branding that we had metal straws, which are all the rage. So we just did it, of course. The bamboo toothbrushes, which came back from last year, because people really enjoyed them, as well as organic soap, organic and vegan soap, sorry, that we got from Frigo Vert. So we were able to get one of the local free levy groups involved, and they freaked out because we bought literally all their soap, and they made the biggest sale of their summer, and they were really happy. And then, sorry, just skipped on the ceramic mugs for everyone. I think I saw some out before, but yeah, the ceramic mugs. In previous years, we always gave out plastic mugs. I do not like plastic. Sustainability, we made them out of ceramic, and they're reusable, they're great. They leak a bit, I know. CSU, yeah. So now the lanyards that you have slowly passed around and probably got lost somewhere in here, those were handed out. That's the only thing I bought extra of. Another thing I really wanted to do with merchandise was I did not want to have leftover merchandise, absolutely not. Lanyards are the one thing that I decided to buy more of than I needed because I wanted to keep on handing them out throughout the year. Sprout pencils, they are pencils that you use. At the end of the pencil there's a little cap, you break it off, you could plant it, 8 different flowers could come out of it depending on which pencil you got. So we handed out all those. Doors were really, really cool. We also got them for an absolutely insane deal. Cardboard pens, because the Sprout pencils, we couldn't give them out to everyone. We also wanted cardboard pens. Again, eco-friendly, they were from recycled paper of some sort. I can't remember which one they said. So yeah, eco-friendly pens. Again, everything here is all branded with CSU, so people were in class and you see them, and it makes you happy when you see people in your class writing with your pens. And the phone sleeves, red silicone phone sleeves, really visible, and eco-friendly, and they're on the back of your phone, and they hold your stuff. So this is the budget for all the merchandise. As you can see, we ended up spending it's pretty bad, but it's $28,000 basically. There are some really good deals in here. I cannot stress some of these. So last year, for example, the soap was $5 for vegan and organic soap, and this year we were able to get down to $1.50. The tote bags went down to $2.94, and they used to be at $4 something. What else? Yeah, I just put this in there because I honestly am just really proud, because normally we spend about $40,000 on merchandise, and this year we were able to spend $28,000, and we really went crazy on getting good deals, and yeah, absolutely insane. Carry on the momentum. So what do I mean by carry on the momentum is last year when they would do orientation, there'd be a series of events, everyone would enjoy the events, and then nothing would happen from there. I want to carry on that momentum. So for example, Isaiah does the annual campaign. I made our speaker series. I brought in 4 speakers to talk about sustainability. We had Ermac and the rest of the campaigns department there as well, Florencia, Grace, and Nicole, all promoting the events that they would be coming up in the year. We had the sustainability mixer also to teach people about different sustainability groups on campus, so right away they could get involved. We had the clubs and community affairs, which got everyone involved in different clubs. These were all things that I really wanted to focus our attention to, because if you get involved in any of these, that means you are coming back to the CSU ultimately in the end. And if you're coming back to the CSU, that means we did a good job. Okay, so in the previous years, Welcome Week used to have a lot more budget than it used to have this year. We had to make some cuts this year, obviously because of the fact that everything was tight. So this year we cut the budget of all of Welcome Week down to $110,000. As you can see, I spent $59,246. I was extremely conservative with everything I would do when spending money, because I was terrified at the beginning, because obviously I've never ran an orientation before, I've never handled Welcome Week, I don't know how much events cost, I don't know how much any of these things cost. So I was extremely conservative with everything and made sure the numbers would not go higher than that. I pretty much did anything to save even like $200 when it came down to it. And what ended up happening is throughout all the cutting, I ended up cutting way too much. And I have way more surplus, which also makes me happy because we could reinvest that into winter orientation as well as in not Loyola, anything but Loyola. And then throughout this, I also bought $6,500 worth of revenue through sponsorships, which again was a byproduct of the fact that I did not know how much things would cost. I did not know I would be able to save this much. last year they spent 97,000 only on the summer orientation and not considering the winter orientation. So I was scared I was gonna get to that number as well and close to, and especially when your budget is 110, that doesn't leave a lot of room for error. So basically one mistake leads to you went over budget, which is something I didn't want to do. So everything was with the intention of mind of not getting close to $110,000. Yeah, that's it. Student reach, just little facts over how we attended the events and everything. We had 5 days, 13 events, and 11,000 students were reached approximately. The actual ranges, our estimate range from all the things are about 9,500 to 13,000 is our rough range based on attendance and what we could and can't track. Events. So these are the events we had throughout Welcome Week. You'll notice that every morning, except for the Saturday, we had a morning coffee. We also put them at different locations. So on the Tuesday, we had it at JMSB. On Wednesday, we had it at, that's actually wrong because it rained on Wednesday. So we moved it inside the SP, not the SP at Loyola, not outside Vanier Library. We had the corner of Maisonneuve and McKay on the Thursday, and in EV on the Friday. Then on the Tuesday, we had cultural fair at Loyola, which was the Latin Student Association, LASO. Yeah. And then open air pub at Sir George Williams. On Wednesday, we had clubs fair at Sir George Williams, and sustainability mixer also at Sir George Williams, but later at night. On Thursday, we had the community fair at Sir George Williams. We had Stingers Day at Loyola, and we had the climate talk at Sir George Williams as well. And on the Friday, we had concert on the field at Loyola, and on the Saturday, we had the student parent barbecue at Greenlands. So the morning coffees, I'm just gonna group them all into one because that's what it is. In the end, it's always the same event, just copy paste it over and over again. We handed out free coffee to students. We handed out agendas to students. We handed out some other merch, whatever was there for the day, we would hand out to students as well. And in exchange, they would have to like the Facebook page or the Instagram. These events were really, really popular. They were probably the most we engaged with students on a one-on-one basis. They often asked what the CSU was. We explained it to them. We told them to get involved. They liked the page. And then they followed up. The thing I noticed is we really misjudged how much people would be interested in free coffee. And we ran out of milk and sugar quite often, and I had to send orientation coordinator Patrick running back and forth to every dep in like a 3-mile radius to buy out everything they had. And we went under budget on this one. Costed 12,000 as opposed to what last year costed 12,200. So whatever, you can read the numbers, you guys can read this. Open air pub, it is always our most popular event. People love it, they go outside, they drink, they eat, they hang around. It's sunny, they listen to music. It's the first day of school, so people always like just don't go to classes the first day of school. Two big things. I want to take away the focus from drinking because in recent years it's been a heavy drinking focused event. So what I did was I started handing out mocktails. So fake cocktails, really cute. Again, I did not imagine how popular they would be because obviously there's the very large Muslim population at the school that cannot drink. So they actually all came out and told me how great it was because on these events they didn't feel welcome because they would show up, they didn't have nothing to do, they didn't want to stand around doing nothing. And there's also other people who just wouldn't want to drink, so they just stood around, they had different things. We ran out so fast of dishware from the dish project that I had to be going up and down personally washing dishes that day just to make sure we had enough because people were just, it was going insane. And as far as the rest of that event, I think nothing really of note happened out of the usual or out of like what we planned for. And we saved a lot of money by basically working with Reggies. So we did not purchase alcohol. We allowed Reggies to serve alcohol for us. They made the profit. We didn't have to work on buy liquor license permits. We didn't have to do any purchasing of the alcohol ourselves and aren't left with any waste leftovers from the alcohol. So we saved a lot of money there. And yeah, that's pretty much the open air pub in a nutshell. Cultural fair, LASO showed up. They wanted to hand out food, they wanted to engage with people, they wanted to play music, and Yeah, it wasn't really, that's exactly what happened. They handed out food, they played music, they engaged with people, everyone enjoyed it. Basically, we didn't end up spending any money for this other than some speaker equipment.
Food.
And, oh yeah, and the food. Because basically nothing out of the ordinary happened. Clubs Fair. Okay, so Clubs Fair was interesting because the first Clubs Fair is supposed to be outdoors. On the street, big thing. It ended up raining that day, and then also a building caught fire. So, so basically we couldn't have it on the street, so we had to move it indoors. We were checking the weather, and I hated to do it, but I had to call it off because of the rain. We brought it indoors, and we were completely prepped for bringing it indoors, so I had already the backup plans ready, so it didn't cause a problem like last year, where last year clubs were basically like, they had no floor plan, security came in. Basically, this doesn't cost money anymore because the only expense associated with Clubs Fair is the expenses of security. And because we weren't on the street, we did not require security anymore. So there was no expenses. Marin, though, from her budget, does give every club $50 to spend on Club Fair related stuff. So the reason I budgeted $2,000 was basically for the security. The other thing about Clubs Fair is when it rained out, I wasn't going to be able to fit all 60 clubs that were supposed to participate in the mezzanine. So I made the go time decision to also rebook the mezzanine a week later and host a second Clubs Fair with not only the clubs that wouldn't be made it, because only about 45 could make it in the mezzanine, but I also ended up reaching out to all clubs that wanted to reserve for us but couldn't because they came too late. So I ended up hosting basically 2 Clubs Fairs a week apart. It was an absolute logistical nightmare, but it worked out crazy good. And ironically, the second Clubs Fair that was like more rushed actually ended up being a little better than the first one. Yeah, the other thing I also want to say is that security, basically with security, if you cancel on them last minute, they charge you money. But thankfully, because Valerie is super nice, she did not charge me the canceling fee, which would have been like $1,500. Yeah. Sustainability Mixer, Wednesday night. This one was collaborated with FASA. FASA made it quite clear that they did not want to put monetary contributions towards it, so they just helped like drumming up interest and helping around, and honestly, that's fine with me. I just like to have fun with people. We had all the sustainability groups join in as well. Ermac, Florencia, Grace, and Nicole worked really hard on getting everything ready with this one, organizing the groups. We were able to get a band, we were able to get the alcohol permits, everything was very smooth sailing. I enjoyed working with Ermac because she answers most of the questions on events because she already did too many events in her lifetime. Yeah, so this one here again, our budget was $1,400. We came to $1,281, so we came close to it. The costs were all well associated. We all knew what the costs were going to be, and it turned out that that's exactly what the costs were going to be. Community Fair. Community Fair is like the alter ego of Clubs Fair. It's all fee levy groups and community groups, other not clubs. So I could invite faculty association groups. I could invite really anything else that's cool and the student body might enjoy. Again, I did the exact same thing. It was on the street. 55 community fair groups participated, and this is only the security cost as well. Another thing I just want to note between community fair and Clubs Fair is you have to book the street. You have to close the street. The cost for those combined is $4,000. So that wasn't. I did not put that in the budget because that's not really the. I did not put that in the community and Clubs Fair budget. I put it in my miscellaneous budget because ultimately that $4,000 really doesn't go to the event itself. Climate talk. So we had Crystal Lamerin, Carl Mayrand, Bill McKibben, and Christopher Reagan show up, and Nancy Wood was from CBC, and she was the moderator. It was a really good event. We budgeted $10,000 for it, and then ending up only spending $4,000. This was I'm really annoyed because I didn't get to go to my own event for this one, and I really wanted to go for this event. There were so many things with this one here. So Carl Mayrand is basically the president of the David Suzuki Foundation, and he showed up on his birthday to do it, and it was also a super last minute call because we had someone else from the UN who was supposed to come, and she ended up unfortunately canceling on us within 2 weeks of the event. So we had to like rush to find the fourth person, and we made the call and he picked up the call and he said, you know what, it's my birthday, but I'll show up anyways. One of the reasons we budgeted so high for it was because initially when I was doing it, I was thinking, okay, we're gonna have to like get speakers, book them, bring them in, hotel, all those costs. And then I realized that just looking around Montreal, there were some really, really good sustainability speakers that I did not need to go and get someone from wherever in the world because they were already here. So Carol Mayran, for example, was here. Crystal Lamerman comes from BC. She was the only one that flew in. Bill McKibben called in and said that he would not be able to show up, but he then graciously offered, instead of canceling on us completely, to do it via Skype, which was awesome, that he still pulled through for us instead of causing a hassle. Christopher Reagan is also from here. So we had a really good talk. People really enjoyed it. They said it was actually really informative, and more surprisingly, they all said that this was, it had about 100 people to show up, and they were all really surprised themselves because they were like, normally when we do these things, there's much less. They speak to like 20 people, but yet, which really confuses me because these people are all like very well known and like publish books and are like really good activists, and yet I can't understand why only 20 people would show up, but they were really happy with 100. Another thing that happened was that they changed so basically we were supposed to do it in a smaller theater to save money, Le Sèvres, and then Le Sèvres accidentally double booked us, so we ended up having to go to DB Clark, which was substantially more expensive, but throughout all the twists and turns that this climate talk had, we were able to hold it and it worked out fine, and we even got it live streamed and recorded, so now we actually have it stored for future, because it's one thing that we've noticed about the CSU is we don't like to record things for the future. So we've had great speakers come in the past and we had no evidence of them ever coming here again because we never recorded it. So I recorded, which I feel happy about. Concert on the field. So this was just the event from hell. That's what it was. Every time there was a problem, it came up here. We ended up finally, through all kinds of changes from being small to big to small to big, we ended up doing a concert with Concordia musicians performing. It was great. The musicians were really awesome. One of the big issues though was that we lost power for about an hour because the generator we got stopped working, and we had absolutely no way of fixing that. Well, no way of fixing that. So one of the things is I'm very scared of power issues, so I had hired a technician to be there on the spot, to stand there next to the whole day, which costed me a little more money, but I said let's go for insurance purposes of having someone in case something goes wrong, and my bet was right because something went wrong, the thing stopped for an hour, and we basically had a technician trying to work on a generator to repower the whole event, which obviously really sucks because you just have a bunch of people just standing around being like, okay, well, what do we do for the next hour? Other than that, it was people really enjoyed it. It ended up the public got involved as well, which was really cool. So people just from the Loyola area would just come and pass by, and they looked at it. We saved money again. We partnered with the Stingers, so we used their alcohol and their alcohol permits. And yeah, that's the concert on the field. And the student parent barbecue was a really cute event. We had all the parents show up with their kids, inflatable games, burgers. It was in a really nice area, which is the daycare, not the daycare, behind the daycare, the Concordia daycare at Grey Nuns. And it ended early due to rain, so it ended an hour short because it started raining on us. But it was a really nice event. The kids all really liked it. It's a little weird when you're like expecting like people at your age and all of a sudden you're just running around with kids, but I liked it. And the catering. So the catering I took separate because we were gonna do catering multiple events with the same company to save money. So I took catering costs out of all the events. Catering costs came out to $10,000, which was just a little cheaper than what we expected at $14,000, but it worked well. And we got ice cream, the carry food trucks, and Visionary Catering. We missed. There's a slide that's supposed to be there, but it's not there. Okay, not go back. Okay, well, I'm gonna say the slide that's not there before I get to this slide. So one thing everyone should be realizing is that all my numbers don't add up to 59,000. The reason those numbers don't add up to 59,000 is because I had a pretty big miscellaneous budget. So instead of buying things or renting things, I wanted to buy things that we could use, like make an investment So we're just gonna use the cheap example of the popcorn machine that I bought. So I bought a popcorn machine that I would use for every event and then keep it. So now I still have that popcorn machine. I could use it at other events. I put that in the miscellaneous because it's basically an investment as opposed to what they did in previous years, which is they would just rent the popcorn machine for the event. And I had quite a few of those, so I made a lot of investments so that my fellow executives, when hosting their events or when doing other things that they wanted, they also could use those as well. Now, staff and volunteers. Historically, Welcome Week has been understaffed. This is also an area that got budgeted cut. So it used to be 35,000. This year it went to 30,000. Last year we had this really famous incident where Dean of Students, so Andrew Woodall, Paige Hillerman, and Terry all had to actually man the barbecues for us because we did not have enough staff last year, which was absolutely insanely funny. So this is not what I wanted to happen. Also to save money, I got volunteers to come in. In the end, I ended up really overstaffing my events to make sure because they warned me that people would not show up. So Michelle was like, people will not show up. They will just disappear day of, which actually did happen to some of my events. But because I overstaffed them, we always ended up at the right amount. And we ended up at a total cost of $28,780.62 for staff salaries for the week. Sorry, not the week, almost a week. It's staff salaries plus orientation coordinators who work 3 months throughout the summer as well. The majority of that's going to the orientation coordinators. And for those of you who don't recognize them, these are the orientation coordinators. Patrick, I'm gonna butcher his last name, but I'm gonna say Grendeveldmeyer.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Just call it Mayor.
Mayor. Elsa Orm and Ugrid Almosa. I really can't thank them enough for what they did. To think that they were just being paid hourly to do a job, but they invested so much emotional time and not paid time into the event and really wanted them to succeed was something I did not expect. Good team. I was honestly a really good team. I'm sad to say that Patrick is now in London where I cannot see him every day. I'm happy to say that Elsa was able to get a job down at Advocacy Center to continue helping students on a more direct note. Ugrit also ended up wanting to join the CSU and took a job at reception and now recently has moved up into comms, which I'm happy because now that means I get to work with her again. Just to say, Patrick did all of the street closure documents on his own, which was incredible because last year the street closure failed because the person wasn't able to get the documents done on time. He also was able to get all the great speakers and so much more that he was able to do. Elsa was just an amazing person, always calm, even though you can know she was nervous, but she held such a calm demeanor and she calmed down the whole team and she was able to manage and organize just incredible amounts of work without ever making, like she was the rock that kept the team going. And Ugrit, just, damn, could she get a deal? The merchandise thing is just her. She was able to get deals on absolutely everything. She would hassle people for every last dollar. And like if ever she wouldn't be happy, she'd be like, I'd get this for less. And she would call back and get it for less again. Yeah, I'm sad to see them go, but I'm happy that they're all doing what they're doing. Also, I would like to thank some of you guys because some of you guys took time to volunteer. So, not to embarrass people, but I'm gonna start from this corner and say Lee for opening the dish project when the dish project was closed at the time, yet she still opened the dish project to allow me to reach my sustainability goals. Hannah, obviously for a sustainability mixer, you put in all days, works, I believe an 8-hour shift there. Yes. Ama for helping me pack my car so many times. Going around. Esther also was at the sustainability mixer hiding in the back, and she also helped me set up a couple of morning coffees, which was nice. Victoria, you helped me write a nice letter. I could not write that letter alone. Maha too was helping me. She stayed that night and helped. It's true. I feel like there's a few other counselors who I'm not seeing here today who also helped, but now I can't remember because it's when I look at your faces that I remember what you did for me. So I want to take that time to thank you guys for doing that volunteer work. And obviously for the exec team for putting up with me. And yeah. That orientation is done.
All right, thank you, Eduardo. The orientation report really is the magnum opus of the student life coordinator's work, so very, very thankful to you for doing all that and for presenting. So I'll just open the floor to maybe just a couple minutes of questions. We won't do this for too long, since the report was quite comprehensive. Maha, you were first.
Thank you. So first of all, kudos on getting something of this magnitude done. I know that it was daunting, it was your first time and having no experience in event planning, something of this magnitude, and the amount of events that you managed to jam pack in the course of 5 days and coordinating all of the logistics for that, just tackling that whole thing, I give you a huge props. Everything was actually done amazing. Like I really love the products that you guys gave out this year for orientation. It made us unique. The CSU, the fact that we were giving out all of these sustainable, like everything that was in line with our annual campaign too. Everything was ethically sourced. It was all of these sustainable tote bags and pencil cases that some of us still have. All of this merch. This is making students so proud. The one thing that I would have said is that I love that you were very conservative with the budget because you were trying to save money. You understood that we were in a deficit. The one thing though is that I would say of what I have heard also back from students and being to a lot of these events was that we needed a bit more merch. That was like the one thing because we ran out of everything, which is a good thing, and I understand that that was your role. But also, for example, the fact that we are roughly around like 35,000 students, so then having a bit more agendas just to make sure that every student is accounted for, that would have been nice. So maybe just like having 3,000 or 4,000 more, because that would have probably just been, that's the thing. So now that we have a surplus, I was wondering if we could use some of that CSU merch to get us some of those CSU hoodies.
The hoodie question or
The hoodie.
What was the first?
First one was first one wasn't really a question. It was just my one recommendation and the one feedback that I had heard on the floor was that we needed to have a bit more merch.
Yeah, so I estimated merch based on the amount of people that would attend events, and the thing is, so I took last year's number. I said I'm going to do 10% more, and instead I did something like 50 to 60 to in certain events like 150% more. So I'll just say the open air pub, for example, last year had 500 people show up. This year we had 1,200 people at the door because you have to buy a ticket for open air pub, buy a free ticket just to say you're in, and we had 1,200 people who bought ticket day of the event. And I'm supposed to have good security, but I will say that a lot of people were unaccounted for when they would pass through the door of the Hive, even though that was supposed to be locked, but someone did not lock that door. And a lot of people passed through the door of the Hive, so that number is substantially higher, really, on who showed up. And then there were people that bought the tickets like days in advance. So the people who bought the days in advance, there was 300 more. So I don't know if they showed up or not, but overall we really went through. So like the first day I remember going to that event, I'm like, oh my, this is a lot more than what we were initially expecting to get. And I put a lot of that up to the excellent graphic designing that was done to attract students, as well as the communication that was done during that week.
Thank you. Hannah?
I also first just want to say you did an amazing job on this. Very good. But then what I was wondering is, because you did get sponsorships, were those in the list of approved sponsorships? Because usually sponsorships have to go through Sustainability Committee and be approved.
Yeah, so I'll just completely admit it. I completely forgot that had happened. And yeah, I'm not gonna hide it. I completely forgot that I had to go through the Sustainability Committee. And I just approved it on my own. It was a mistake. Now remembering later on saying, oh my, I was supposed to go through Sustainability Committee. That being said, I did not, because many people want to sponsor orientation and Welcome Week, and you get like hundreds of them. But I did Google and look into them to make sure that there wasn't anything like bad that we were sponsoring. And what ended up happening is basically, I went through it, I didn't see anything like dauntingly bad. And then I just said, okay, and completely forgot about Sustainability Committee. And that was my mistake, but.
Thank you. Arad?
Yeah, I mean, our job on council is like to hold like execs accountable, and it's true. but I think it's an important point to like congratulate also like on the successes. So I'm really happy about what you did, and I just wanted to highlight, because I'm on FinCom, we were, when, Des is not here now, but anyways, when, and actually Elias is here, but when we were looking at the numbers and we saw your numbers, we were very shocked in a positive way. And why that's good is because, okay, you're able to do, let's say, the second welcome week of the same magnitude, which maybe perhaps if you stayed like in prior years types of spending, you would have a much smaller second welcome week. Or even better yet, like there's a possibility of any leftover goes to other projects that also deserve it. And I just think I really appreciate you taking the time to be that conservative, and I hope everyone does this too, because that allows other projects that need this type of money to get it, even when we thought like, you know, oh, we have 1,500 spent, let's spend 1,500. But that was not the mindset you brought. So I'm really happy about that.
I just want to note on one little thing on the budget, because right now it's at 59,000. So that's going to go up just a little bit in the coming month, just because the school is extremely slow in charging me for stuff. So I'm still waiting on some bills from the school, and hopefully they never come. But I have a feeling they're going to show up at my door one or another.
The estimate is around 63. So
I'm
65, I think.
I think that's it. But
Estimate.
the other thing I just want to note is, so Melise gave me, basically Melise was able, shoot, what was I going to say? I forgot what I was going to say. Oh well, I forgot what I was going to say.
If you think about it, you can bring it back.
Very cool.
Esther?
Yeah, so this has nothing to do with the presentation, but it's more on the words you chose. I'm just going to take the space to talk about this here. There's this sort of weird hierarchy in the CSU, and you said that Ugrit went up a position, and like there's this weird like that receptionists are not at the same level as the executive and as workers, and like I want us to work as counselors on this weird hierarchy, and that we should all sort of not be like higher than the others. But this said, thank you for your presentation and thank you for all the work you did. But we should also just look at the words we use and like try to not create a hierarchy.
I just second what Ara just said, and thank you for the good job.
On that note, we also at some point need a motion to approve this
Oh,
report. Isaiah? Or you can use your speaker for anything. Yeah, folks, Isaiah has the floor.
Yeah, I think in the language that Ed used just now in terms of like point of understanding is like Ugrit, being that she was she is a receptionist. She was an internal hire, so it's not like it's moving up in terms of we hire internally first. It's not that we view our jobs and the jobs at the union in hierarchical terms, but it's just like wanted to clear that up. But again, congrats to my colleague Ed. I'm glad to see you still have all the hair on your head, and I told you so. It worked out just fine.
Thank you. Victoria?
I call the question. There is none? Okay, I create a motion.
You just have to move to approve.
Oh, I move to approve and we proceed with our lives. Thank you, Eduardo, for your time.
Isaiah, second. No.
Perfect.
Okay, is there any opposition to approving Eduardo's report? Perfect. Okay, so that carries unanimously. And we are done on this point, unless there's anything further.
What happens if they were to disapprove it?
Like, it usually would have amendments and then come back and so forth. Like, usually there'd be a reason.
I can't change.
And then it would have to come back.
I can't change welcome week now.
But yeah. Okay, so we are, yeah, Victoria?
No, I just wanted to know why all the executives left, or half the executive team left.
Patrick said he went to take kombucha out of his car
Oh, that's
with Melise.
why?
Is it really kombucha? That's why he left. I'm saying.
Thank you.
The next point is, because the next point, the two people are not here and present right now.
Yeah, okay, so we're at 6A, which is Fee Levy Review Committee, and James has put this on the agenda but hasn't been here for the last couple meetings, so I'd suggest tabling it indefinitely, and that way it's up to James to ask for it back on the agenda at a time that
I
they'll
would
be
love
here.
to table it indefinitely.
Okay, do we have a second?
Do
Emma?
that to me.
Okay, is there any opposition to tabling it indefinitely? Perfect, so that carries. Millie's is not here for the sponsorship motion, so I guess we'll,
I can just call her.
okay, well, we'll keep going with the agenda, but you can move to table it until she's here, I guess.
I think that can also be tabled until, and I don't think it's super necessary to talk about it right now. We are having a meeting on Friday, the Sustainability Committee, to talk about what we're doing with just sort of like general sponsorship stuff. I thought this was just like a holdover from last meeting.
Yeah, it is from last meeting, so I don't know what the intention is, but if everyone's okay with it, we can just keep going and we'll figure this one out. Okay. Okay, so September 18th minutes, this one's just procedural, Rad?
Yeah, be resolved that the motion carried on October 9th, 2019, to adopt the September 18th, 2019 minutes be rescinded. Be it further resolved that the amended September 18th, 2019 minutes be approved. That Shivani.
Second, Victoria, do you want to just explain it for?
Yeah, I mean those are just mistakes in the thing that would make us liable to motions that did not exactly occur. So we just amended them to make sure everything is held properly accountable to.
Right, Victoria?
I call the question.
Okay, is there any opposition to approving the minutes, the amended minutes? No. Okay, perfect. So that is all good. Those are approved unanimously. And we're on strategic planning update. Arad, this one is yours, finally.
Could somebody put up my PowerPoint, please? I'm just sending.
Continue grinding like this, I like it. Wait, is it on the Facebook page or PowerPoint?
It should not be. It should. There's no motion. There's no motion.
Okay.
We're not voting on it.
Yeah, it's just a presentation, like a little information.
Yeah. Anyways. All right, thanks guys. Well, until she sets it up, it's fine. I'm just gonna do like Des. I'm just gonna do this because there's a lot of animations. Thanks guys. Hi.
Is this gonna be a JMSB presentation?
No, not at all actually. This is strategic planning update. As you guys know, we set up the strategic planning committee. I wanted to give you guys a little update about what's going on because we can't really go forward until everybody's on board. So just so everybody knows, I'm the coordinator right now. We decided to appoint me and I'm fine with it. Otherwise it would have been the GCS coordinator and I was up for it instead. In our committee we have Elias, we have Salman, the GC and myself, as well as Robert, who is the general manager. So I wanted to highlight some of the core issues that we had just so we can get into the solution or the start of the solution that we want to get into. One of the main core issues is the yearly turnover of executives and counselors. So every year, new execs come in, new counselors come in. And with that, we have all these new short-term priorities, which are good for those short-term priorities, but it makes it very easy to forget the long-term priorities. All the old-term priorities that came by and might have not all been completely resolved are often forgotten. So we might solve a couple steps of a problem, and then the last few steps are kind of left in the dust. So that is a major problem that is just inherent to the way the CASU operates right now. And another problem is that there's no real common definition of what the CSU is really meant to achieve. We all have a fairly roughly similar-ish idea, but we don't really have like a cohesive idea yet. So this is something that kind of should be worked on together. So should it be like a service provider? Should it take political stances? Should it fight or work with Concordia? Should it help only Concordians or a member or any member in Montreal or Canada or the world for that matter? Should it be all of the above? These questions we've never really asked ourselves in full and agreed upon everybody together. So these are the type of questions that we do need to agree on before we can actually have these types of motions come up and we approve on it one day and then the next day we might disagree with it. So what these problems cause is basically inconsistent decision making, which is kind of what I was referring to. It's kind of a lot of flip-flopping between one council's decisions and the next council's decisions and 5 councils later's decisions. And it also leads to a lot of poor financial planning because of this flip-flopping. And in addition, it leads to a lot of like longer meeting times, as we're all aware of, a lot of disagreement, of course, and just a lot of like conflicting issues and agendas because we never really agreed on what's important and what's not. And because of all this, there's really no way to gauge what is an effective and an efficient use of funds. So we don't know if someone's asking $10,000 for XYZ project, we don't know if that's really accomplishing our goals as the CSU. We have a general idea and everybody kind of agrees, but to certain extents. And so really having it clearly outlined what we're trying to accomplish will make it a lot easier to have these effective and efficient use of funds. So this is what JMSB proposed as a strategic plan. Now we're not, yes, yeah, JMSB's in there. We're not saying that we're gonna follow this, of course. This is just like, think of it of a template. So the template over here is they're looking at a broad vision. This is something to really just show their ambition of who they want to become. They're pretty much not there. Like, I'm gonna tell you now, I'm in JMSB, they're definitely not there. But this is where they're trying to become, this is what they're trying to become. The mission statement is more concrete in terms of the things that they want, the things that they have to offer to students. So in the case of JMSB, they have to offer engaging learning, they have to offer a research environment and blah, 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 blah. In our case, obviously, it's not that. All this over here is fed through our core values. So obviously, JMSB's core values is stuff like daring to innovate, promoting responsible business, going beyond the classroom, blah, 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 blah. But our core values, actually, this is probably going to be the easiest one for us to agree on what our core values are. But we'll see again what our core values are. And once we have all this, it's going to be very easy to have some strategic imperatives, key problems that we want to solve over the next 5 years. So these key problems, again, they might be tinkered or not, but at the very least, if we have something out there, we'll know that these problems have to be solved at some point. So I want you guys to all picture this really quickly. We're at this council meeting, let's say a year from now, the next council. They sit down and before starting, they start looking at something very similar to what we have. And they're like, oh yeah, it's true. We had to make sure that we want to progress A, B, C, and D initiatives. And then someone comes up and presents something that targets directly A, B, or C, D initiative. Then it's very clear that this is a priority and we can invest funds on that as opposed to something else who's maybe not a priority but still important, so we can invest maybe less funds to something like that. It's something that would help guide discussion rather than have something be an ethical debate between us of we should, we shouldn't. It would be very clear, we all agreed in this room that this is a #1 priority versus we all didn't agree on this. So how will it be created? So the process over here is that I don't want 5 people in the room to decide what the CSU is supposed to represent. Like that's just completely useless because nobody's going to buy into that. So 5 people in the room do a lot of legwork. So the beginning starts with developing a preliminary vision, mission statement, values. And I really mean preliminary. We're pretty sure that this is not going to be anything close to the final one. But it's going to get some legwork going. The second step is to identify some key stakeholders to form a panel. So while we are going to want everybody on council's approval, but it's not just council that matters. It's all the committees that matter. It's all the students at large that matter. It's our staff that matter, the services we provide that matter. Even going so far as fee levy groups, they have a say. Our clubs, they have a say. All of these people represent what the CSU is. So we want to make sure that we identify stakeholders to form a panel. And now we want to take that panel and consult them with some of the preliminary vision, mission statement, and values that we would have come up with. And for sure, they're going to have a very different set of vision, mission statement, and values. And that's what that's going to be for. It's all these perspectives that we wouldn't have taken into account previously. And so we were very careful with our identification of the stakeholders to make sure that we're taking all perspectives that we haven't really taken into consideration before. So we present an initial draft after working with this committee, with this panel and the committees. We'll present an initial draft to council, see what council thinks. By that point, really, I'd be trying to talk to every single one of you as much as I can, but as much legwork as possible. And then we'll see what council thinks. So here's where we're really not sure. We're looking into the possibility of seeking some professional guidance on this because we're students. I mean, Robert has some experience in this, but Robert's experience in this is with for-profit companies. So it's a little different than with the CSU, with a nonprofit. So we'll look into it. Right now, a lot of the specialists in this field are too expensive, and we're not willing to spend much money. And anyways, first of all, before spending any money, it would have to come to you guys to approve it. So that's contingent. So we'll see. There's currently a professor in Concordia that did the JMSB model, the template that I showed. We'll see what he's asking. I'm not quite sure, so I can't comment on it too much. I will see what he's asking, and I'll get back to you guys about that. So once we have this core vision, mission statement, values, everything, we all agree on who we represent, then we can start having these preliminary strategic initiatives, basically the five to seven things, I don't know how many things it's going to be yet, but let's say about 7 things that we want to solve in the next 5 years. And again, those will be consulted as well with the committees and stakeholders and presented to council. Now, once we have everything together, then we can finally ratify the final piece of strategic plan. And that, my friends, is going to take a little bit of time. Like a lot of time. I'm not gonna lie. Even Robert said, chances are we're gonna be somewhere around the final stages by the time we're all done with council, and we might not make it till the end. I'm gonna try to push as much as possible and get as much work done as possible. So far, we've already done steps 1 and 2, and we've started reaching out to the panel, but again, like coordinating with that panel, we haven't even decided how we're going to coordinate with that panel because there's a lot of work to be done. All right, so what we need from you is a little bit different. I know you're getting ready to finish, but not yet. So we need your excitement. We need your support. So this is something that's going to take everybody's buy-in. And I'm sure there's still some people that are not fully bought in yet, which is fine. I mean, it's your prerogative. Come ask us. Come really make sure that this is something that you believe in. But we do need you to understand the importance of this. Like, if there's no core statement of who we are, then like how can we proceed without this? We do want your thoughtful insights as well. Like, I need everybody's insights. Like I only have a very limited view of what I think is important, and I'm sure it doesn't take into consideration everyone. And lastly, like if you can be proactive and come forward right away with an idea, that would be like, and people have done that. I've loved that. I still haven't taken the time to take note of everything. I should start doing that. So please help me out with that as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
There is no motion, by the way.
Yeah, I know. Okay. So there's a couple questions. Esther, you were first on the speakers list, and then Victoria and Haha. Okay, Victoria.
I just want to say thank you and just vote on moving on.
We'll just finish the people with their plans with us.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that it's a really, this is actually crucial. I think that the CSU needs to have a clear and defined statement of what its mission statement is, and what its vision is, and what its values are. Because that way, that's when we're gonna know if a motion is ever brought to the table that contradicts that, or if ever something is brought to council. By having something clear and set, instead of it being up to a vague interpretation, this is actually just gonna help council run smoother in the future. Now, you did mention earlier that you do not believe in having these 5 people, yourself included, in a room to decide what these missions and values should be. But then you also did mention that you 5 people already have a version drafted, and so I was wondering if you were planning on contacting any of us and consulting us throughout the process, and how exactly you intend to do that, just for efficiency manners.
Do you still have those slides available?
I don't think I have them as well.
Yeah, 100%. Maybe, I think I was not clear in the slide itself. I felt like I was rambling a little bit, so I'm just going to summarize it once the slide goes back up at some point in history, in time.
I mean, I remember it though.
Yeah.
What slide are you referring to?
Well, once we get there. Okay, but anyways, the gist of it, the gist of the plan is, yeah, we have like a preliminary one, but it literally does not mean it, there's no ratification, there's like, this is just something that we think it's a good starting point for discussion. We did the next step, which is identifying the stakeholders. So there were some counselors that were reached out to, and who knows like if those will be the final counselors. Basically, we were looking for people who are on the most possible committees, so we have the most possible like perspectives held within those counselors. But we started reaching out to like all the other members of this panel as well. So after that, once we've had something more concrete with them, the idea is that it will already have like a lot of perspectives in it. But not only will we be seeing with them, but we'll be talking one by one as much as possible to the different committees themselves. Once that's done, then we come back to council, which by then everybody should already have an idea of what it is, because you're all on committees, and because as much as I can, I'm going to talk one by one to people. But just by the bias of being in a committee, you should know what's on there. So when it's presented to council, it should not be a surprise. And if it is, you'll see it.
Thank you. Suggestion to that though?
Yeah.
Maybe we did like a Google Doc, so just that everybody, well, like a little survey, and then if ever was put on the Facebook group, then every single counselor has access to it, and then they could state what committee they're a part of, what like values that they find are important, what strategic, where do they see CSU going on in the future, whatever questions that you have, instead of individually going to everybody, making it accessible, getting all of this data. That's just like a quick, time-efficient way as well.
Sorry, I kind of lost track, but I just wanted to say that overall, I think that this presentation is like really useful, and I really enjoy it. I think it's gonna really help the CSU. I was also wondering, what would you do maybe with the positions book, since we're gonna have like all this common goal that we're all going towards too, and we don't want to refer to 500 different like things. Like, would you abolish it? Would you would our mission, could that possibly go through referendum? Like all these like kind of questions that are coming up to mind that I'm sure we can talk about some other time for time's sake. But yeah, that's just. But overall, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, just to comment on the presentation one. I don't have an answer for it, but. Like when we were talking about the positions book, which is very targeted, like something happens or like some issue happens where like we oppose or support this issue, which is what it's really meant for. But it also kind of like holds dust a little bit. Like people kind of forget about the positions book very often. So I don't know what we're not going to do anything. What we're going to recommend to do with it, if we're going to recommend. I don't think we'll have time, to be honest with you, this year. But yeah, it's something to rethink about, like. What is the most efficient use of it? I don't know. Like, we don't disagree with anything in there. I don't know what's going to be the best way to make sure that like things don't just get forgotten.
Thank you.
No idea.
Did you have a response?
Just, we talked about it, so to share some of the discussion we had concerning the positions book. It's pretty much as Rod said regarding specific issues for the positions book. Whereas the mission statement and all of that is more of moving forward. If we encounter a certain project proposal, a certain motion, where does the CSU stand regarding that in general? And that can help us take new specific positions regarding specific political climate issues and such.
We're just trying to like.
Okay.
Get along. Elizabeth?
Yeah, so I just had a question regarding the stakeholders. You said that you had started to contact people. I just wanted to get an idea of the process in which this panel will come together, and then will it be the panel that decides these preliminary visions and values, or is it you reaching out to people, getting a sense, and then the committee deciding?
Yeah, that's the thing that we wanted to make sure we have a meeting before this presentation today to talk about that, like the nitty-gritty of exactly how we want to go about this. I don't have an answer for you because that's one thing we wanted to talk about. In any case, like what they say has to be taken very seriously. I don't know if it's like, I don't know exactly the semantics of how it's going to be, but it has to be taken very seriously. Like you have a good point there. I don't know. Good question. Good question. We're getting there.
Thank you. Isaiah?
I know the CSU is, I'm sorry. I know the CSU is kind of like it is a representation of all students in terms of representing body. So I always wondered, is this going to be, does that mean that it's its own separate entity and has its own culture, or should it reflect a different mixture of you use JMSB strategic planning as an example, and I'm not sure if there's one for FASA, if there's one for ASFA, if there's one for engineering, but would the CSU be a representation of all those comes together, or are we kind of like something that's completely unique and separated?
All those comes, okay, but the ones you're mentioning, just a point of clarification, the ones you're mentioning are academic strategic plans, right? So it wouldn't make sense to bring those together, but are you talking about CSU as like a separate entity to the student bodies themselves?
Yeah, so it's let's say it represents all four faculties and
yeah.
independent students, right?
Yeah.
So are we, the union, are we our own unique culture because we represent a unique, diverse thing? Or are we, what's that called, the product of all our sums? In terms of, are we taking a culture that represents everyone in a type of way? Do you see what I'm saying?
I'm not gonna lie,
We'll table discussion to one.
Okay, so that was the speakers list. I'd shut down a couple people for questions before, because at the beginning we'd said just a few. But Arad, you're available for questions anytime, I presume? Perfect. So thank you very much for the presentation. That was very informative. At this point, we are on appointments to Finance Committee. There have been a couple of resignations of councillors, so there's a couple of committee seats open, but we do have new councillors coming in after the by-elections. So it is tradition that we usually do table this after by-elections, but I don't know if you want to.
Yeah.
Okay, Arad?
I move to table.
Okay, do we have a second? Victoria? So is there any opposition to tabling the committee appointments till after by-elections?
Nope.
Okay, so that carries. That is good. Yes?
It's not just finance committee. I think there will be appointments committee. We are one less.
Okay, the resignation of Victoria. Yes.
Victoria didn't. I don't know if she presented it to the chair. Their resignation.
Like you said, I did, but I didn't know if I had to actually send you an email, so I never got to that. If you want an email, I can send you a nice wordy email.
I mean, yeah, sure. You can just send me one that says just so I have it in my record.
Okay, perfect.
And also,
Nicholas resigned from Loyola and Finance.
yeah. So Loyola and
But it's
already there. So Loyola and appointment.
we're tabling it, so we'll deal with it then.
Yeah, the motion was to table all standing committees.
So for all the committees, right?
Yeah.
Perfect.
And then if anyone else wants to resign, do it this week so we can figure it out next month.
Yeah, okay, Arad?
Well, I'm gonna wait till people settle a little bit.
She's gonna go to the club because she needs some.
Okay, folks, there is a speakers list. Arad?
Yeah, no, so, so I was gonna say, because there's gonna be a bunch of new people coming in, and because we've been running, a lot of people have 4 committees and stuff, and I don't know if they're overwhelmed or not, but I would be. If you have 4 committees and you feel overwhelmed, I recommend dropping 1 or 2 of your least involved ones, so that the new people can have something to be involved with. I'm overwhelmed with 2, so I don't recommend more than 2.
Thank you, good advice. Isaiah?
I've never been involved before in the process, but after the by-elections, is there does every councillor have to, can we have more than the allocated seats, or there's only 4 council seats on the committee? So let's say a new councillor comes and.
Well, yeah, so the way it works, there's always going to be 4 council seats, so that doesn't change. There have been some exceptional circumstances in the past where, since the seats are allocated by standing committee, by standing regulation and not by election, that can be not withstood. But it was kind of really exceptional circumstances, and I think it's only happened a couple of times that I've seen. But it's not the general practice. So, Yeah. Did you have anything else? Okay. Yes, Desiree.
On that same vein, is there a usual reshuffling of the committees? I don't want to reshuffle my committee, I love them, but is there like a?
Not by design.
Okay.
It has happened. People have resigned to give their seats to new councillors, but it's not.
Okay, but it's not necessary. It's not.
No, not at all.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Is there anything further on the committee's point? Okay. So in that case, we can move on to substantive. And Desiree, you have the floor for your student endowment fund motion.
I completely forgot.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, I'll put it out. Oh my god, I completely forgot I even had to talk to him.
Here. Thank you. Have it. No problem. Uh-oh. No. There you go. No. Oh, there we go.
Okay. So, whereas the Student Endowment Fund's purpose is to support student-driven initiatives consisting mostly of, but not limited to, capital construction and renovation projects. Such proposed projects shall benefit the entire student body. The fund shall support student life initiatives and activities that support undergraduate and or graduate students, from Standing Regulations, Chapter 11, Regulation 205. Whereas there are only 4 lines of regulations regarding the distribution of the Student Endowment Fund, Regulation 205, 206, 207, and 208. Whereas the 2019-2020 fiscal year started with $145,155.08 in the Student Endowment Fund. Whereas council has approved for $28,547 for the Indigenous Student Parent Bursary Project, $20,000 for the Solidarity Economy Conference, $3,000 for the Post-Secret Project, $20,000 for the Montreal Youth Summit, and $8,200 for the Mindful Project to come out of the Endowment Fund. Whereas this leaves $65,408.88 left in the Student Endowment Fund for the remainder of the year. Whereas having students present projects to council is not the most efficient way of granting funds and makes discussion and criticism more difficult, be it resolved that the Student Endowment Fund be closed until a policy is written detailing the process to access such funding. Be it further resolved that this policy be written by the Finance Coordinator with the participation of the Finance and Policy Committee. Be it further resolved that this policy must be presented to Council by the 2nd January General Council meeting. And be it further resolved that the budgetary impact of this motion is nil.
Right, do we have a second? Salman, do you want to motivate? All right, Desiree, your motivation?
I think the fact that we don't have too much flexibility, thank you. We don't have too much flexibility this year in the operational budget. Everyone is very much aware of it, but so when students come and ask for funding, I know my knee-jerk reaction and everyone's knee-jerk reaction was just to point at Student Endowment Fund. But that puts us in a situation where so much money has been spent out of it. It's historical, it's astronomical. And I don't want to keep going for the end of the year and then have nothing left for the upcoming executives and councillors. So just because right now there isn't any regulations, it's completely up to the discretion of council, and I'm really happy we funded the projects we have. But for the future of the year, we can funnel these projects through the specific funding committees that we have on campus. There's a lot of them. And yeah, just so that we can figure some clear regulations and have a diligent process to have people at least come to FinCom or some sorts before presenting to the council.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Aman? Or were you just doing this? Okay. Naomi?
Can I call the question?
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be anyone on the speakers list. All right, so no need to call the question. So we'll move to a vote. So all those in favor of the Student Endowment Fund motion, please raise your placards. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Opposed? Yeah. 0, and any abstentions? 1. All right, so that carries. And if there's nothing further, we are, where did that go? We are on electoral reform. And Maha, this one is yours.
Yes.
Yes, all right. So sorry. Give me like one second. Yeah. Sorry, yes. So the motion, actually, that's the thing. I'm just gonna give a little disclaimer before submitting the motion. This is not a personal attack on any one individual. I wanted to just state that once publicly so that we can move on from it. Also, the way that this proposal, that this policy is shaped, it doesn't actually need to pass through policy committee because it has been, there is no budgetary impact, and so essentially the way how this motion is to be presented is simply to be ratified in council. That being said, the motion itself on the floor is, whereas this motion will bring incentives to hold students accountable for their actions, whereas students have next to no information about candidates on election ballots, whereas the elections are online, whereas to include full transparency by the student union on election ballots, whereas to hold accountable students who overpass CSU's regulations, whereas this will ensure consequences for failure to follow current CSU standing regulations, be it resolved that previously treated, disqualified, or discharged members wishing to run for any CSU position must include a disclosure of their candidate slate ballot about their offenses and the date of the violation for any and all elections concerning the CSU. Be it further resolved that this motion take effect immediately. Be it further resolved that the budgetary impact of this motion is nil.
Victoria, your motivation on it?
Thank you. Transparency and accountability is something that almost every single person in this room ran on while campaigning. It is what we got voted in for. As CSU and as its legal board of directors, we are liable to the students who trust us to put their interests above our own. Anytime that you start, whenever you are applying for a job anywhere, they ask you on your, when you're filling out an application form, have you ever committed a crime? And if yes, what was the nature of the crime? Have you been indicted for it? And what was the date of the violation? This is a basic question that is asked. And even though the CSU is a non-for-profit organization, and we are still its legal board of directors, and we have a responsibility to uphold to the students. We are managing their finances and their money. And frankly, an omission of the truth is technically considered as a lie, and it is misleading to the student population. The students have a right to know who they're voting for. It is not the fact that anybody can run for the elections. This is not to shame anybody. This is not to prevent any second chances. This is simply about transparency and the fact that students have a right to know who they are trusting with their money and who they are trusting to represent their own interests. And if transparency and accountability is something that is important to you, I don't believe that anybody here should have any opposition to this motion, but all friendly amendments are welcome to it. Because this motion is about electoral reform. It's about making sure about the sanctity of our elections and that nothing and that no one is meddled with. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor and Chris?
So like usually during elections and campaigns, when there is someone who does commit a grave offense, the CEO will create sort of a punishment paper thing where they're like, this person is not allowed to rerun in any election for the next 2 years. So I really think that's up to the CEO to decide if anyone has done a grave offense and to implement that. And in some cases, the judicial board, who is higher than all of us really in decision-making, non-biased decision-making, if they also like intervene in that decision, that is up to them and it is something we should respect. Yeah.
Did the CEO get a training?
Yeah.
You got a training this year?
No.
Last year when it
The
started.
CEO did not get a training.
Yes, they did when they got hired.
Okay.
Because he's
That's,
the same CEO.
We didn't hire someone new this year.
Thank you.
okay, continue.
I feel like that was a personal attack, but
Okay, we'll just make sure to keep the tone in mind next time.
Thank you. So when candidates do any wrong, the CEO prevents them from rerunning. They are usually the person who implements consequences. Have you, Maha, this is a question, so I'm directing it at her. Did you, like, by any chance talk to him, consult him, see what he thinks? Because he does kind of have a semester of experience.
Are you asking me if I consulted the CEO regarding this motion?
Yeah, because
Point of information.
Or that's, yes?
In regards to your question, the CEO was consulted regarding this issue, personally, by me.
It was not.
Okay, me?
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not trying to attack you.
okay, cool.
Yeah, no, he was, I'm just saying he was personally, I did speak to him about this.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Point of information right now over here. Guys, as Maha mentioned, it's not a personal, it's not against one person. Let's keep the temperature of this room very good.
Yeah, this is for future.
Yeah, this is for future.
So it can't
It's not
affect
attacking anyone from the by-elections. It's not attacking anyone in this room. Let's keep it calm and easy.
It's for the future, we're really planning for like the
Yeah.
next things.
Yeah,
I just have a point of
It's still
information.
Mary's Speaker's turn.
Could I just,
There's been a lot of point of information, so just continue. Sorry? Your, placard,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, totally.
That would be personal privilege, but yeah. Go ahead, Maren. All right, folks, Maren has the floor.
Point of personal privilege, can people stop interrupting Maren?
Just to, at all these point of personal privileges, I have feelings too, and I'm a person too. And I'm sorry, Elizabeth, if I asked you that question. I felt your tone was a little higher, but that could be me, or maybe I'm stressed. But I think, yeah, I got my question answered. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Chris?
Yeah, so if you read the standing regulations, there's already a punishment for those who get disqualified. It's that you're not allowed to run again for 1 year. That's the current rules. Now, there's been one instance I've ever heard of in my entire life where the judicial board decided to waive that exception. And that was what one candidate who ran in this election. So if this were to pass, you'd be passing a rule that applies to only one person who's ever had this happen to them in living memory 5 years of CSU. So this policy is redundant. If you're saying it's not an attack, but it only applies to one person ever, it is an attack. If you read the standing regulations, there's a punishment. It's called not being able to run again. It's there. So this would literally only apply to one person because the judicial board doesn't go around waving pardons around like it's a usual thing. A second thing to say, this isn't to shame people. We believe in second chances. It is to shame people. If you're a criminal in the real world, in elections that actually matter, do we put on the ballot that you were a criminal? No, we do not. Our elections are not more important and to a higher standard than Canadian federal elections or Quebec elections or municipal elections. So I can't see this as anything other than a very strange motion that targets a situation that's bound to basically never happen again.
Thank you. Just to clarify the standing regs, the punishment for disqualification is not always 1 year.
But the fine is available, yeah.
Yes, yeah, there are different punishments for various offenses. I've lost my speakers list. Salman.
Can I be put back in the speaker list?
Okay. I understand this is not a personal attack. It's more so in student politics, not everyone is aware as they should be, so you want people to be informed in their decision making. Oh my God, this is the favorite. Sorry.
Can we do it later? Can we do it later?
Can we stop hitting the things on the table, please?
Right, just everyone pause. Right, so I get the principle of the motion is to inform students of the decision they're making of whether or not they want to vote for someone who has cheated, who has disqualified, whoever. I get that, but putting it in the same way that this is not a personal attack or this is not directed at anyone ish. If you put yourself in that perspective, being disqualified doesn't always mean like you could get disqualified by, I'll give you an example, when I ran in the CASA elections, I accidentally posted my Facebook page prematurely. See, the DRO messaged me immediately. He's like, this is your first warning. Then like, if it happens again or another slip up like that, you could go and be disqualified from the elections. So if, like, I don't know, it's like, I feel like this is, let's say if someone ends up accidentally, like last year's team also got disqualified. And I'm like, I would like some amendment in the motion to make sure that like your definition of disqualified, because right now it's kind of like, as in you were at any point disqualified. So technically, let's say if I were to rerun next year, because I was disqualified but reinstated, do I still have to be like in my bio, previously disqualified but reinstated Isaiah? So at least being like if the final verdict or whatnot. But I don't know, I feel like there's a better way than to necessarily just have to like put that, because it's like that's like if on your CV, like they ask you in the job description, but like that's just like in your CV, it's just written criminal. Like every time someone picks up your CV, the first thing they're gonna see is like, oh, criminal. But I get it, but that's just what I think in the situation.
I just want to voice the fact that the elections have been abused many, many times in the past. Not only by people that deliberately abuse the system, but people that have been victim of, conspiracy by adversaries. So both things happen, and if we're going to make a new rule or a disciplinary measure, we have to take that into account, that some people during the elections are also victim of, other people's misbehavior. So I want this to work. I mean, if the media doesn't inform the students that vote for the candidates, maybe we should do something to inform them. But we have to do it in a way that that helps. I mean, in a way that like will not allow for further abuses of the system in the future. So I think this motion should definitely be amended. Just to like be clear about what discharge means, what disqualification means, under which conditions you will get disqualified, which statement will we take into account? Will it be JB's decision or the CEO's decision to put it in the bio, or whichever way of informing the public that we will do? Yep, that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to object with some of Isaiah's concerns on the fact that it's not clear on what is cheating, what is disqualification. So I can just give some examples. If you look right now on the election page, you will notice that the CEO is handing out fines for cheating if your poster is misplaced. So if your poster is misplaced, you will get fined. Does that mean you're running again next year? You're going to have to put up on your thing, I cheated because I misplaced a poster. As for disqualifications, there's a lot of ways to get disqualified. Like Isaiah said, posting early. Also handing in a form that, let's say let's take this year's example. Someone signed a form, scanned it, and sent it in. Technically, you're not supposed to. You're supposed to do it in person. Does that mean that person has been disqualified from the election and is not eligible to run again and now has to write on their bio, disqualified? This, quite frankly, doesn't make sense to me personally, so it's not clear enough. If the intention of this is not to take effect for this election, I would say we have 4 months until the next election to write a proper policy about this. We could send it to policy committee. You guys could all work on it and make it tight. The other thing I just want to say, and I'm going to address the elephant in the room here, is that, I'm just going to say it. So everyone's been saying how it's not personal, and while I have absolutely no care if it's personal or not, what I know is that councillors wrote a letter to the link which made it sound very personal. So the timing of this being election week, the fact that councillors have written an anonymous letter while calling transparency to the link, saying how while calling for this motion to come in, gives the impression that it's personal. Now again, I don't really care if it's personal or not. You guys do you. I don't have a vote. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, if this is actually not to take effect now and won't affect anyone running right now, just go back, write the policy, come back next week with a proper policy that wouldn't make it so that people who put up a poster, misplace a poster, are gonna have to label themselves as cheaters on the next election, because quite frankly...
Naomi? Okay, Victoria?
Okay, so I just have two things to say. The first one is that this only happened to one person, so it's an attack on one person is like a really hard claim to sit through, because to hear that is like, okay, so one person's been raped, oh, it's not important, let's not do anything. One person's been killed, okay, it's not important, let's do anything. Yes, I know we're talking about cheating and I'm going excessive, but that's the point. The point is that one person does make a difference, and one person is one thing that you have to do. With that said, I know you were saying you need to talk about what like the definition of disqualification is, but at the end of the day, when you go to the border and you buy alcohol, you have to declare it, right? So declare what you've done in the past, whether it was your fault, whether it wasn't your fault, whether whatever. Transparency is about saying, this is what happened, this is where I am, this is where I've been, and accept me for who I am, and like, let's move on, and like, you think I'll do better? Or, okay, I still need time to like figure it out. But anyways, that's all I have to say. I feel like this motion is very, like, it's just to like improve the future and improve our transparency, because we're all gonna sit here and say we're transparent and accountable for our actions, but like, are we really? Because like, that's all I'm saying. Thank you.
All I'm hearing right now since I got back from getting kombucha with Lily's is I'm hearing policy issues. I'm just going to point this out. I'm hearing small, minute policy issues that could be talked about in policy. The person in question who presented this motion is on policy committee, so I'm a bit confused, as I also told them that there will be a meeting in the after the by-election. So I'm just a bit confused as to why this is here. There are also a number of structural issues with this motion, because this is an ordinary resolution. However, this looks like a change to the standing regulations when I read that motion. That is not in there. It requires a lot of amendments if it were to pass. It wouldn't be in order if we were to pass this right now, because it would need changes to the standing regulations, which requires a 2/3 change. And as well, if you're making changes to the standing regulations, they should probably go through policy committee beforehand. Another thing is that we are doing a governance review. It's taking long, I get it, but it has to be done properly to have good policy, and we will be looking at the elections part right now. So I'm not here to debate if this is worth it or not, but I'm just pointing all these structural flaws in this, and I would recommend that this not be passed whatsoever. Yeah.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
Okay, so a lot of great points were made. I completely agree that we need a larger electoral reform, which I do think should go to policy committee, obviously, and that will obviously be reviewed by council as a whole. However, I really do disagree with the notion that this is a personal attack on someone, solely on the basis that we have to use precedents when we're going to change standing regulations and bylaws. So saying that this happened to one person is actually a great reason to change policy, to conform it to what continues to change and JB's decision. So I don't really understand that. Like the whole thing about being a criminal and being branded as a criminal, your criminal record is open for all to see when you're above the age of 18. So like, I really honestly do think that this is just part of open transparency. Like what happened, and people should be able to know it when they're going to vote for someone, and they can make up their own mind. I don't think anyone's being condemned with just saying that students should have the facts. So I really do disagree with that. In addition to what Eduardo said about how a group of counselors wrote that letter to the link and didn't put their names on it, I was one of those counselors that helped edit that letter. I'm gonna say it right there. I don't think that there's anything wrong with putting your perspectives to, the school newspapers. I think everyone has been posting their perspectives online, so I really don't see how that's any different. In addition, I just really don't like this language of personal attack, personal attack, personal attack. We're talking about policies, we're talking about the general system, what needs to change, and the literal things that have happened through the system, aka JB rulings, CEO rulings. So I would rather not get these ideas of like personal, the person is wrong, when we're literally just talking about the structure of the CSU.
Since everyone, I hear everyone is agreeing on one thing, that we should discuss this on policy, I would like to make a motion to send this to the policy committee for a full review, for to get over all the advantages and disadvantages and come back with a full report. But I want this thing to be done in policy committee as soon as possible, not just lingering on every other policies.
A second.
You could propose a time frame if you'd like that.
Can I will say that in motion.
By next meeting?
By next meeting will be great.
Okay.
27th of January. November.
November.
So do we have a second? Is there any opposition to, I'll let you coordinate a second, but is there, actually, go ahead.
So why I want this to be sent to the policy committee, like as my fellow councillor mentioned, like just saying discharge or just saying like disqualification, me being a candidate in last year by-election and facing a problem of other people doing conspiracy against my nomination, putting 15 posters, taking down like almost more than 40 posters, and I didn't make it public because like I was not even elected. I didn't made it public because like I don't want to. Like it's just like when I ran again, I should have or I should haven't. But if my votes were docked, it was not just because of me doing any mistake. It's because of someone doing a conspiracy against me and happening. So yeah, like going to the policy, writing down what does the disqualification mean, what does the discharge mean, and there was one more word if I am not wrong, just in a sec. Cheated, like if they cheated and if the cheating was really like JB approved, like saw it as a cheating, because sometimes CEO comes up and say it was cheating. Before last year, the whole slate was disqualified, and then the whole slate was like they came in back. So CEO saying it was cheating, but JB is overruling it. JB saying no cheating. It's a no cheating because JB overruled it. So like all these points should be cleared, and then we should come back on 27th.
Okay, is there any opposition to referring this to policy committee? Okay, with the intention to come back at the next meeting, is that opposition? Or well, actually you don't get a vote. So, sorry. Okay, so so just formally, all those in favor of the motion as read by Salman, please raise your placards, and I'll get speakers after. 12, all those opposed, 0, and any abstentions.
There's two positions. Can you just put down to let them vote? Isaac cannot vote.
I know, I'm just.
Do you just have password, Isaac?
Oh, yeah, just in case, and also, because having gone through the election process, we know it's like a shitstorm, and I'm gonna speed it up, but, excuse my French, but also, I think there also has to be, when we do this election reform, kind of like a more general application of the laws or whatnot, because there's infractions on every side, so get overlooked, and then they're like, well, my word is my word. If we can make sure that there's consistency among like punishing everybody in terms of their infractions, then better process.
Last word. I want policy committee, when they announce this date for it to be done, this meeting to be done, I want this to make public or not public to amongst councillors. So if any other councillor not sitting on the policy committee wants to come and pitch in your idea and want to discuss, comment. Like, yes, we are taking it away from the council, but yeah, policy committee, I want everyone to know, okay, this is the date we are meeting, and any other councillor who is not sitting on the policy committee can come and introduce your ideas. Yes, you are not a voting member, but you can still come and sit in the policy committee meeting.
Last word, the chair of policy committee.
Via the executive.
So the rough draft of the election reform is talking about a more, so I'm just going to point this out, like how these infractions work right now is that there is basically a fine or a warning and then straight to disqualification. It makes absolutely no sense right now. What we want to do is we want to put in a demerit system where we're not financially penalizing people, and we're also having like consistent like things that are like consistent clear rules that you just cannot do, because that's not what we have in the current the current standing regulations. You have some rules, but it's just all over the place. It's unclear, it's vague, and it needs to be reformed. So I echo that sentiment, and I just want to say that.
All right, thank you. So at this point, we're on the discretionary fund document approval, and Melise, this one's yours.
Okay. Also, before I start, if anyone hasn't picked up their bottle from the back or the front or wherever there's a bottle, please take a bottle. Yes. Okay. No problem. So, you know how we have a policy currently saying that you can't order Ubers? I know, I'm sorry. Basically what happened was that I was at Loyola today for 2 hours trying to order a taxi because I know that's the preferable one. And then everybody said that they didn't have a van. So I was like, you know what? We'll just get an Uber. So I had to do that because I had to bring back dishes. But also, nobody goes to Loyola if you're a taxi. And none of them go if you are a van that's a taxi. So I have 1 receipt for today. I have 2 for 2 a.m. after the after party for the time travel event. I have a van for bringing the dishes to Loyola. Yes. So it all adds up to $130 something. Is that okay? Can I get that passed through my discretionary? I know it's a sustainability point, but yeah.
Okay, Desiree?
Yeah, I just want to say, to my understanding, I don't think there's an actual words on paper policy against Uber. I know it's been a controversial thing, but it's up to people's discretion. And although like bringing this to council is fair, especially there was a lot for transportation, so I just want to yes for that. But also to people, if some councilors feel very, very strongly about Uber and want a policy written, that has to be done, because right now it's strictly up to our consideration.
On Friday, we have a meeting to talk about sustainability purchasing policy, so it might come up there.
Yeah, because right now it's very much limbo and it's up to
Yeah, I just wanted to do it for transparency in case the signing officer is like, what the fuck is that?
Decorum.
Haha.
Maha?
Yeah, I just have a point. So I appreciate that it's very transparent for you to bring this up on council, but how much do execs get in their discretionary funds? And 500, okay, got it. And so you're asking if you can use this money from your own discretionary funding. Have you used your discretionary funding at all?
I used like $5.
Alright, perfect. I vote to call the question.
Yeah, Victoria, there's no motion on the table, so if you could just say move to approve.
I move to approve the expenditure.
Okay, and do we have a second? I can't see. Elizabeth, does it has to have a budgetary?
Yeah. So what is?
Discretionary.
It's just to approve the expenditure.
So I guess the motion would be in whole, do you approve, let me check in the chat to see how much it is before I start saying words. Hold on.
Just say the expenses.
No, I'm not gonna read each one. I put it in, I did the math, so let me.
Do you know what does anyone know what your budget line is?
$134.65 out of my discretionary fund.
So you would need, for like point of, I guess,
Yeah, go
whatever,
ahead.
you would need, be it further resolved, that the budgetary impact of this motion is whatever out of the Loyola discretionary fund.
Okay.
Otherwise, this can't pass.
Okay, perfect. So Victoria is no longer here. All right, so Arad has proposed an amendment. Do we have a second? All right, is the amendment considered friendly? Okay, perfect. Is there any opposition to approving the 130? Okay, so we'll continue with the speakers list. Esther?
Yeah, so I'm fine with you paying that, using your discretionary fund. I don't want it to happen again. I don't want this to just pass quickly and that happen again, that you use an Uber or anyone uses Uber. I'm strongly against, and the people I represent are strongly against. And I mean, we need to write a policy. We'll talk about that on Friday. So yeah, that did not happen again.
Yeah. Right now, I'm just asking to the room, is there any policy against using Uber?
No.
None. So if out of personal thinking, what single person think, we don't run like that. If there is no policy against it, there shouldn't be any discussion at all. And if as a good faith, Melise brought it to the council, it's a good faith. There's no policy against it, and we shouldn't be just talking over it.
Yeah.
Honestly, there's nothing to get out of Loyola. It's actually really depressing. Yeah, I did call taxis, and then I let them know where I was, and then they were like, wait, how much stuff do you have? And I said, 10 boxes worth of dishes, and they were like, psych, and I was okay. So I waited for an hour and a half trying to use other alternative methods. There's just there's just a bit of an issue once you get outside the city center of trying to get anywhere.
Thank you.
Speak to Salman, well, to my fellow. Is this to say that Oh, no, I'm not calling. I just want to speak specifically to why it's an issue. Yeah, it's just an issue because I know it was controversial in the past, so if people are like, have emotions towards this, we can bring it to the table and council can officially have a vote. Because right now it's truly, it's controversial, but at the same time, if people are willing to use it, it's okay. So it's good to bring it to the table completely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Patrick?
I was saying that me and Desiree are working on the finance policy, so we can add that in if council feels that way, and we can bring it to policy committee for review. That's where we're at, because me and Desiree have been working on it for months, back and forth on it, so yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there a second? Maha, is there any opposition to calling the question? It's just to approve the expenditure and that the out of the Loyola discretionary fund, and the budgetary impact is $130 and something cents. Okay, so all those in favor, please raise your placards.
Well, actually, I wasn't here for the discussion. So.
11, all those opposed. 0, and any abstentions. 1, 2. Perfect. So that carries, and it is approved. Millie, did you have last words? Yeah.
What's the difference between the purchasing policy that you guys are working on and the one that sustainability will be working on?
It's finance policy. So there's similarities, but it's yours purchasing. I think it's more with the sustainability focus. There is a lot of overlap. Yeah, I mean, you can do it, and then we can add it to fin policy hours.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so there was also the sponsorship motion, Millie's, that was tabled while you weren't here to when you were back. It's a returning business from, I think, a couple of motions ago that got tabled.
No, we spoke about it during sustainability committee and it all got passed.
Okay,
that's
perfect.
why we have these.
Excellent. Okay, so that was easy. Okay, and so now we're at the reports that were pulled, academic and advocacy, and Hannah, this one was yours.
Yeah, I pulled that because I thought, I was reading through it, and it was a little shorter than all the other ones, and it wasn't very detailed, so there were some things that I wasn't clear on. So for example, for Senate, it only said that divestment passed, and not that much about how people were involved in that and what actually happened. And then for research, it said, it's not saying concretely what work is being done. It's always, most of the time it's stating it's being worked on, but it's not clear what's actually going on. So I would just say that it would be great if in the future it could be a little more detailed. So in comparison, last year's academic and advocacy reports were about, I looked at the one from the first November meeting as well, and that was 4 pages of just text and in font point 12 and not 14. So just a thing to maybe make that more detailed in the future. That would be great.
Thank you. We need a motion to approve the report, unless.
Does anybody want to approve my report?
Naomi? Okay, do you have a second? Salman. Is there any discussion on approving the report? Okay, so in that case, all those in favor of approving, please raise your placards. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All those opposed? 0. And any abstentions? 1. Okay, so that carries. And general coordinator report. And Hannah, you had a motion for this?
For that I had a motion. Mostly because it was handed in late and there were some issues with it, and very late. So whereas Standing Regulation 397 requires executives to submit reports to council within 5 days prior to regular council meetings of council, unless excused for exceptional reasons by the council, whereas position 11.1.2 mandates the CSU to actively support affordable, sustainable, and student-run food service initiatives on campus adopted in 2013 general elections. Whereas the general coordinator failed to submit their report by the prescribed deadline, whereas no exceptional reason was provided justifying excusal for missing the deadline, whereas the general coordinator included in their report to council their work as an individual student on the online opt-out referendum campaign in the description of their work as general coordinator in their late report, whereas the position of general coordinator is the chief spokesperson of the CSU, be it resolved that the council formally warns the GC that their individual referendum campaign is not part of their mandated responsibilities as an executive of the CSU and therefore does not constitute a valid reason for failing to submit the report within the prescribed deadline. Be it further resolved that $100 will be deducted from the GC's next paycheck as prescribed in Standing Regulation 397 for failure to submit their report on time. Be it further resolved that the budgetary impact of this motion is 100, I believe, if my math is correct, or how do we phrase this?
Usually you have to mention which, like,
Yeah.
where it's coming out of as well, but.
Yeah, but it's like going, it's
Yeah, so
not
say-
going and out of anywhere, so
Say the budgetary impact is $100 less than
less than
budget, like,
budgeted, okay.
as long as it's clear
Yeah.
Is there
from,
second?
from salaries.
Esther, your motivation, Hannah?
Yeah, I think it's just, this was sent to council, this report, less than 24 hours in advance. I think that's absolutely not acceptable and should be brought up. I can understand that there's sometimes by 5 o'clock on Friday, sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes it's like 2 hours later, that's fine. Or over the weekend, that's okay. But less than 24 hours.
I submitted it on Saturday.
Yeah, not a point of information, but yeah, about the time frame, with the documents kind of came into me slowly over the course of the weekend, and then I just submit them all on the Tuesday.
Yeah, this is not less than 20, I sent it in like just a few hours after the deadline.
Yeah, okay, but then it could, like, every other report was then posted on Facebook so that we had access to it, so
Well,
that's
Okay, we'll just cut the back and forth.
Yeah,
I do
but that
understand
was
this.
not the only point that I had. I also think that the online opt-out and council change referendum questions were done as an individual student and not as general coordinator. And because of that, because they are mentioned in this report as something that was worked on, thus student money is going towards this through paychecks. I don't think this is acceptable because if a referendum question is being undertaken as an individual student, then it is highly, like, it makes a huge difference if you're being paid for that or not. And the council did not, or this is not part of the mandate. So because of that, I think this is, yeah, that's why I think this is not acceptable.
Yeah, so to speak on that, all of you approved my report at the beginning of the year and my work plan, which included that in it. So everybody in this room has consented to me, part of my work hours, doing this. So you can't go back on that now and go, well, we're gonna deduct money. Now, if you wanna change your mind, that's all right, but you can't use that as a justification to dock $100 from my pay after you approve that work plan. So if you want me to change my work plan, that's fine. You don't want that to be included, principle of student hours, that's fine, but you can't use that as an excuse to dock my pay. As for the lateness, you know what? Maybe I should have posted on Facebook, but I sent it to Caitlin and I figured it'd get into your hands sooner than later. I understand that you have a lot on your plate and you do a lot with your life. Like, that's fine, but that's what happened. It wasn't me just going, like, I don't think I should be punished because some executives posted it on Facebook and I didn't. I don't think Facebook is a formal tool for communicating anyway. So, for those two reasons, I don't think my pay should be docked. I think I did my work. This sets a double standard, basically, because I didn't post it on Facebook, you're docking my pay. I think that's unfair.
Thank you. Just please refer to council instead of you in the future.
Sorry
Joey?
about that.
I'm usually one to not want to dock paychecks because I think it's a bit unfair. However, late reports are something that's occurring a lot in this, like, this team. So I would like stress the importance in having them on time because then we end up as counselors having to go to Facebook, which is ridiculous, to go get this document, that document, getting like the sustainability coordinator applications through a counselor because the GC couldn't do it because he didn't have time to do it. Like, we can't have all these reports everywhere and anywhere. So I think that docking this paycheck is, I hate to do this and I don't want to like do this really, but I just think this is like a formal warning to just take us seriously. Send us your documents on time. Like, we're not paid, you are. You should respect us in that. And furthermore, I just want to point out that it's really disrespectful to all the counselors, like everyone in this room, the chair, the minute keeper, that executives are leaving the room back and forth when like people are here for their time. And I just want to point out, I don't know if this is the standing reg 395, all executive members are expected to attend council meetings from beginning until end. And all of us,
Point of order, sorry to interrupt, but we can't talk about other things.
okay, I'm sorry, I'll come back to that.
But yeah.
But I'm just, it's just to go into the mind that it's very disrespectful to get late documents and
Yeah, if you want to deal with it under new business.
Sure,
section, that's
sure.
fine. Or not under new business.
Okay, sorry, yeah.
Right, thank you. Patrick?
Oh, I moved to amend to dock myself $100 because I was late. So I think it's totally fair if Chris is getting docked $100 for being late, I should be docked $100. So yeah, $100.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Esther? Is there any or I guess you want to speak in, well, you kind of already did, actually.
I mean, I think it's unfair to single out a single member of this executive team about this. So personally, I think I should be docked $100 because I handed it in on Saturday. So that's it.
Can the amendment be considered friendly, or is there opposition to it? Okay, so in that case, we'll move to just discussing the amendment, which is to dock Patrick's pay as well. So Jane?
Hi folks, non-counselor here. I was a counselor last year in this very room, and we would often receive documents from our executives a day or 2 days late. During my own time there, we never docked people's pay, and while it is in the standing regulations and we should uphold those regulations, it's important to at least inform executives that we will begin to actually impose those rules. Again, I have no power in this room, but maybe it's just not coming to not my fellow counselors, but counselors in this room, would be maybe to just amend it to a warning and to let executives know that they should keep this in mind going forward.
Thank you. Right.
Yeah, so I understand the frustration behind it, and honestly, like I would hope going forward, even if your document or whatever it is not ready, like if you didn't put everything in yet, I would rather incomplete, like a little bit incomplete and sent on time than like always consistently late and full. But that being said, like this is ridiculous. Like there's no way we can vote yes to this. Like we've been letting everybody else have a pass. We're not going to single out one person. Like what are we going to do? Like go back like the past years and like dock everybody's pays and like bill like everybody in this room plus all the previous execs? What the hell does that mean? Like there's no point in this. But what this brings up is frustration of like being late. And honestly, I love timely stuff, so I'm with the sentiment of this. I'm just not with the docking of pay right now, all of a sudden singling out one person.
Thank you. Right now we're speaking to just the amendment.
Yeah, but like, so the amendment is docking his pay as well, so I wouldn't be fine with that either.
Yeah, another thing is, I think this sets a double standard. How many times have we forgiven a counselor's absence? What does it say in the bylaws? You're absent twice, you're out. I haven't seen that in practice. So you're holding me to the highest standard of the law, but then for counselors, it's like, oh, well, they're late, we don't even know why, let's excuse it. It's been common practice in the CSU for years. And while I'm okay with that, because we're all doing this, like this is pretty intense, these 6 hours. I don't think it's something we should be punishing people for not being able to show up once in a while. We know who cares. They're often in this room, and if they're not here twice, I don't think they deserve to be kicked off. It's the people who don't care who, kind of just disappear, and that's what that rule's there for. So I did my report less than 24 hours later. I submitted in the morning. I don't think I should have my pay doc. I don't think Pat should have his pay doc.
Thank you. Isaiah.
I get it. There's one thing that I personally find hard about like the 5 o'clock deadliners and whatnot, because on the Friday we have work as well, and I get it. Like it's kind of like our school assignments where it's like, yes, we should do the assignment like as soon as we get it. We should start writing down and working down. But as students, we know like how we are. Where it's like it's okay. I'm not gonna get, but all this to say in terms of like One, I'm not sure how it, like, I'll go through the formal process. I believe, like, maybe at least, or at least our school assignments are due at 11:59. It would be, I think, a lot of like, the lateness might stop if we could submit it at Friday, 11:59, because then at least the workday is passed and all the, like, stuff of the week or whatever.
It's changing the bylaw.
It's a bylaw, not a standing reg.
Yeah.
And also, if you submit things at 11:59, that means I have to stay up until 3 a.m. Just throwing that in there. Yeah. No, it's sorry, it's Isaiah's speaker turn.
I think now it's like, no intention of disrespect, not excusing lateness or whatnot. We got to do better. We all got to be better. But I think at least for this case or this time, it's like, it should be a hard warning. It'd be like this, like, set the precedent. It's a hard warning. Next time, no excuse. We had the conversation. We went around the table. It bothers people, and if people still are late, then they're late. And then they get fined. There's no discussion at the table. But right now, it's like, there's been too many executives being late, too many counselors, like, as much as, like, I was late today trying to get the food or whatnot, it didn't work out. It's not because I didn't care or didn't want to be here. It's like I just was trying to make sure that I was able to get the food and carry it here, like, not dropping it or spilling anything or whatnot. Or, like, if even to the point where it's like, if you, as a diabetic, if I don't eat enough and this meeting goes to 11:59, I have to leave the room and go and take my blood pressure or go do whatever I need to do to survive. And then I'm like, well, now my pay's docked because I left and I couldn't, and that's an extreme case or whatnot. But, like, sometimes people just need to, like, distance themselves for a second, go take a walk, do whatever they do. It shouldn't be like, because it says from the start to the end, going out to get coffee for other people.
Yeah, I think we're kind of moving off topic. We seem to have a bit of trouble staying on the amendment topic as well. So I can see the room is pretty favorable to sending a warning from what I'm getting from counselors, but not super favorable to the pay docking. So if we want to do this efficiently, maybe vote down the amendment, amend the motion to remove the pay docking, and then move forward with the rest of it. Does that sound like something people can agree to? Okay, so since we can't stay on the topic of the amendment anyway, seemingly, I propose moving to a vote on just the part about Patrick. Is everyone okay with that? Okay, so all those in favor of the amendment, please raise your placards.
The amendment of adding Patrick.
Not for the motion to pass. Just Patrick should be tacked onto this.
Yes.
That's what we're voting on, not whether or not we want to pass the motion in and of itself.
Yes, exactly. So all those in favor of adding the amendment on, please raise your placards. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and any abstentions? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so in that case, the amendment fails. So we're back on the main speakers list. Marin, where'd you go? There you are.
Never mind.
Salman.
Okay, so perfect. I have to second to my execs, like not my execs, CSU execs on this, and also like yes, we have to stress on putting our putting execs reports on time. That's a main issue, and not putting it on social media or Facebook group. Yes, it's a closed group, but that's not a place to send the reports in. You have to send through a proper channel. Like today, I sent an email to all the counselors regarding NCV, and the room was upset because of it. So if room was upset me sending a CV, it should also not be a case of sending the reports on social media, but it should be sent through the chair. That being said, the excusal thing, like yes, we have been like excusing our counselors and execs in past council meetings without even seeing the excusal. We were just like, okay, the excusal was sent to the chair, we will excuse them. What was the reason? Like there was any good reason for the excusal, or they were just not being to come in. They were elected, they took this position to represent, and they're not representing. What's up with them? Like we have to then check that too. Deducting $100 from anyone's paycheck is like, then we have to deduct internal clubs coordinator, academic advocacy, student life coordinator, and general coordinator, because these all 4 reports came in yesterday with the remaining docs folder. So like, yes, we have to go after all these 4 execs, not one. And since we are in our previous motion where it was a situation like an exec was doing his referendum work, I kind of agree, like it was a platform that an exec or a team came in with, and that was a platform that they were elected from the students at large, from the students, and they promised to like fulfill that platform that they presented. And if they are doing something that we have already agreed on at the beginning of the year, that we are allowing him to work on it. So I don't know like what is a specific reason like to really ask for like what he was doing, like what the GC or what the exec was doing with the referendum question, if we have already allowed them. So these were the 2 things I wanted to point out.
Alright. Okay, on the entire motion, with the pay document?
Actually, I amend the question.
Okay.
I would like to amend the question to replace the be it resolved with, how do I word this? Could you help me with the wording?
I think there is a warning.
Yeah, so be it further resolved that executives be formally warned that the next time
That future occurrences of
future occurrences of late reports will be penalized with $100.
regulation
Yeah. Blah blah blah. That. Be it further resolved that the budgetary impact of this motion is nil.
Can we send a written warning can we send a written warning to GC so we have in record, like we have already won?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's in minutes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, perfect. It's in the minutes.
Yeah, it's very written.
Okay, so be it further resolved, I'm just editing in the group, be it further resolved that the executive team be formally warned that future instances of late reports will be penalized under standing regulation 397, is it? Understanding regulation under the appropriate standing regulation. Oh yeah, okay, it is 397. Okay. Is that okay? I will post that. And then, okay, do we have a second? Emma, is there any opposition to that amendment? Okay, so in that case, we'll move to a speakers list. Esther. Oh, sorry, is that Jared or Esther? I just see it. Oh, Esther, okay.
I wanted to speak because I haven't really been allowed to speak a lot because I'm far away and so you don't see, and also the camera's in front.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's me. Yeah, there's a big problem with lateness. So I'm taking this time to talk about lateness. To a lot of committee meetings I go to, people are constantly late or just don't show up. And frankly, I don't have the time for that. And also not just me, but for other students, when you come late, just you have a job, like just don't be late. It's not that hard. So if you do make a meeting, show up. That's all. Thank you.
Also super relevant under business arising, but not necessarily to this motion. But business arising should be good. Okay, so is there any opposition to the amendment? Okay, so in that case, it is approved as friendly. Do we want to keep talking about the motion? Because we're at 20 minutes now for the agenda point.
Question, so what are we voting on? Are we voting on docking pay and sending a warning, or just a warning?
No, just sending the warning. It's in the, I've rephrased the motion with the amendment and edited it in the group.
And could
so
I
you can
clarify
see.
to Jared, could I clarify?
Yeah.
If let's say this goes as a no, then we go back to voting on docking pay.
Okay.
Okay, so it's an amendment.
Oh, no, we just
And
approved the amendment. Everyone's good with the amendment.
Oh, we just approved it?
Yeah. I
Oh.
said, is there any opposition, and nobody raised their hand, so
Oh,
it's
okay.
approved unanimously.
So we're now voting on whether or not we send a warning, and if we vote no, then nothing happens, there is no pay, there is no warning, it's just...
Point of confirmation?
Yes.
Like this warning is just for one exec or all the execs?
The executive team.
The executive team, perfect.
Jared? Was there a placard over here?
Yeah, with me, I have the same question. I want to ensure that's like, this is for every single executive, so make sure your reports are on time, guys. That's not my turn to talk though.
Folks, the motion's in the council group, so you can just open it, it's right there. It's the first thing. Naomi?
Sorry, nothing.
Jared?
Yeah, as someone with a lot of council experience, there have been, in my time, a lot of docs that have been sent in late. I myself was late today because I had dress rehearsal. But it is important that we do send a warning if that's the route we want to take. I'm completely fine with, some councils are like, you know what, if it's a little late, so long as we get it at some point, we get it. Others will say, you know what, we need this, you know, right on time. And if we want to say, look, 1 second after it's late, we're going to dock your pay, we should be able to do that. Send a warning first. I like doing that. You know, don't dock pay right away. Send a warning first and do it for everyone, not just one person. So I like what we're doing. This has the Jared seal of approval.
Yeah, so I just want to speak about, like documents. I know myself, I sent very, very late documents, literally the day of. And, I appreciate everyone's forgiveness, and I don't want my pay to be docked retroactively. But just to say that I've done it literally the Wednesday, sending documents, and although I appreciate people just being, pretty cool about it, there is a double standard, because if I've done it and there's nothing happened, and it's just like specifically when a specific exec does it, that kind of ticks, because I get that people have disagreements with people on the executive team. That always happens, but for the sake of efficiency and the point of why we're supposed to meet, I'd rather, like, if you don't, just efficiency, double standards.
So we'll just finish.
Frustration.
Oh, thanks, sorry. We'll just finish the speakers list, Victoria and Patrick, and then move to a vote because we're over the 20 minutes. Victoria?
I kind of want to answer that first before I kind of make my statement, but I feel like this wasn't a personal attack on Chris, but it was more of it's been mentioned before, because on every single time a document has been late, I've said it to someone guys, we can deduct pay for this, we need to set a standard, and I've said it so many times, and I think this is the first time it was actually taken seriously, and yes, fine, now first time it's an actual warning, and I should have said it a long time ago, but still. Anyways, the other point I just wanted to bring up is that councilors are not paid to be here. Executives, this is your full-time job to be here, so it's important that you're here. If we're late, if we're doing something else, this is volunteer. I'm late, I have class. I'm excused every time because everybody knows I have class. But if someone's late, we have lives, we have classes before this, we have other things to do. You guys work before this right next door, so it's kind of harder for an excuse for you as it is for the rest of us. And I just wanted to make that point because I feel like there's no differentiation between councilors and executive, and
Okay,
thank you.
Like I said, we're over 20 minutes. We're just going to finish the speakers list with Patrick, and then we'll move to a vote.
Right, so I'm perfectly fine getting warned. That's totally fair. I didn't submit it by 5 p.m. That's totally fair. It's in the rules. But there are several counselors who are in committees who don't show up to committees. For example, Loyola committee doesn't seem to be functioning. For example, policy committee, when we had our fee levy applications, it just went kaput. My point is that if you want to warn executives, you have to be warning yourselves today too.
Okay, it's getting a little.
I'm just saying that I don't like this double standard happening. So.
Okay, noted. Thank you. So the motion on the table is as is written in the group chat. Yes.
Am I allowed to motion for another 15 minutes of discussion?
Yes, you are. Okay, seconded by Esther. Is there any opposition to 15 minutes? Okay, so we'll move to a vote. So all those in favor of extending debate by 15 minutes, please raise your placards. 1, 2, 3. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And any abstentions? Okay, so the, 1, 2, 3, 4 abstentions. Okay, so the 15 minutes does not carry. So in that case, we'll move to a vote. So all those in favor, yes?
We do need to make a vote to extend council because it's past 11.
Oh, it is, okay. Can we just vote this one?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So all those in favor of the motion, please raise your placards. It's in the council.
Not to dock their pay,
Yeah.
it's a warning to all the executives.
No, wait, I'm sorry, but in the motion it says be it resolved that the budgetary impact of the solution is on.
Oh, sorry, okay.
It's gonna be more.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's
Ignore that part.
What's the motion?
It will now be modified.
Okay, sorry, my mistake. I should have amended that when I think it was Arad who had said the amendment. I just forgot to write it. Okay, so all those, yeah, just changed it. All those in favor of the motion as it is written in the group, please raise your placards. 11, all those opposed? No. 0.
Include me in the... She
12, okay.
Yeah.
0, all those opposed? 0, and any abstentions? 0. Okay, so that carries. And we are on the... Sorry, yes, Jared?
Point of information.
Yeah.
Did we like move to extend past 11 o'clock?
No, we have to do that.
Do we have to?
Yeah, do we have to?
It's 11:04, so we do not have time. We're actually 4 minutes past. So if we like don't do anything, then council's
No,
done.
we do have a proposed amount of time.
Oh, like how many points do we have? Like
There's
2,
3
3?
informational points.
Yeah, I say 25, 15, 15. 15. I'm sticking with it. Let's go.
Okay, so all those in favor of extending 15?
Point of information
Yes.
before we extend. How long are these points? Like Isaiah, Patrick, and Patrick? How long are these points?
Isaiah, Patrick.
I personally would like to talk about council conduct and business arising if you're down.
Yeah, I think business arising could be useful.
Yep, I'm done.
25 minutes?
Sorry, point of personal.
Yeah, what's-
I have to leave soon and
Yeah,
I would like to do
let's
I need to leave by 11:30 max, so I would like to get the most substantive points in order first, and to set like a time limit just to do it efficiently. So if there is something that you would like to bring up or that requires a lot more discussion, now's the time to mention that, so we know that if now is the time, or if it should be tabled to November 27th, our next meeting.
Okay, is everyone okay with half an hour?
Yes.
Is that, is everyone amenable? And then we can always look at it as the time goes. Reassess, thank you. Okay, so second for 30. Is there any opposition? 0. Okay, so in that case, we'll move to informational and systemic discrimination. Isaiah, where'd you go? There you are.
Point of information.
Yes.
Again, which one of these 3 can be pushed forward to next meeting? Because we would go with those last. Because we're not going to get through all of them.
Okay, Isaiah has the floor.
Isaiah, how many minutes will it take?
I'm trying to take one, just one.
Yeah.
Just one.
Because we can't seem to function and get this done right on time. So I know it really sucks for the people that are at the end, but we shouldn't be making them speak as fast as possible just because we couldn't figure out how to appoint a sustainability coordinator. So Isaiah?
Quick. I was working deeply with LIC, Legal Information Clinic, on a brief to send to City Hall for systemic discrimination and racism. We presented the brief at City Hall Monday. It touched on systemic discrimination, like Bill 21 and like the different over-policing racial profiling that police and SDM did, and we had specific demands and whatnot. We touched upon the housing crisis and different international students, how landlords are abusing their rents and like different malicious rules against them. And we touched upon the treatment of sexual misconduct towards women and sexual violence at the brief, and also the gentrification in places like New Chinatown, St. Henry, and whatnot. And so they were relatively really receptive, did a few interviews or whatnot, so just wanted to share that with the council.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say, like, congratulations, and you did such a great job, Isaiah, so thank you for that. I read what you submitted, and it was really comprehensive, and there were a lot of issues in Montreal that I didn't even know about, like the gentrification in Chinatown, which I thought was really interesting. I didn't know about that. And I just wanted to say that these are really the type of things I look forward to hearing about at council, and I'm really glad that you're doing such great work in regards to this, so kudos to you. Yeah.
No, I'm just gonna keep this short and simple. Actually, my colleague here just said it. I couldn't have said it any better. I'm really proud, especially at being in the committee of BIPOC with you. I'm very proud to see this. I'm so proud to see these actual stats, and these are actual real policy solutions and recommendations. Like if you guys scroll past in the bottom of this document, you actually have actual concrete policy recommendations, and so that is so helpful. Seeing students go into the city of Montreal have these like real impactful conversations. This is something that's going to benefit all of us students, and this is exactly what we were voted in power here to do. So I hope that we get to support more initiatives like this. That being said, hopefully we all see you guys at the BIPOC launch event on Friday. Shameless plug.
Thank you very much. Is further on the systemic discrimination point? Okay, so if not, we can move on to, oh, sorry, was that Jane or Victoria? Oh, okay. Divestment, and Patrick, this one's yours.
So I'm hoping everybody heard that Concordia is planning to divest by 2025. I just wanted to share that publicly because I just wanted to thank a lot of people for this. It's been a movement from apparently 2008, so there's been countless amount of students and organizations that have been involved in this, and so I think I just wanted to give a shout out to them because they truly cared about this. This isn't about any of us, but it's about everybody putting the work into this. And I'm really happy that this happened because I think as there is a climate emergency right now, it's important that the university be a leader, and they've actually been showing that recently. So there's always more work to be done on anything, but I think these are great first steps, and I think I want to thank students for that. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you. Annalise?
I might be a complete idiot. Is there a reason why it takes 6 years? I'm like totally cool, but like, why does it take? Just curious, like, why does it take 6 years to put money from A to B?
Ask your finance coordinator after.
Okay.
I pointed at Isaiah, but I made finance.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this is going to go down as one of the proudest moments in Concordia history. Seriously, this is absolutely great that we are divesting by 2025. It's gonna be completely divested like this. This is huge. This really is, and we all should be proud to call ourselves Concordians today.
You know what the next steps are so that we make sure that they like go forward with this, like just like the follow-ups. What's going on?
So I think in the long term, at the moment, there's JCAC, which is a committee of the foundation. It's really a question of what these groups who sit on it, the people who sit on it, what they want to do with that going forward, because that could potentially become a monitoring body to ensure that they're divesting. Something along those lines, I have no idea. That's just a thought. I'm not involved in that process at the moment, so I can't really, that's to the extent of my expertise, knowledge. So I think the next steps is really the monitoring, and if sustainability groups have more ideas about what we can do next, I think that would be great. So, yeah.
So follow-up is kind of like out of our hands now. It's like really sustainability groups doing the follow-ups and everything.
Yeah, it's so for example, Desiree is on JCAC, so it's the Joint Sustainability yeah, I know, it's so long. Can't remember all the names. But yeah, she's on it, so I think she's going to be looking into it with the rest of the groups who are on it.
To speak on that too, I just want to say, I think it's also in good faith of the school, to be honest. They made a big announcement. They're so proud of their 3 goals, and they will not back out at this point. It's amazing press for them.
Your speaker turn next. Do you want to keep going, or?
That's it.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Hannah?
Yeah, so I just think this is amazing. But yeah, we definitely need to make sure that there's transparency around how this is being done and all of that, and that it actually follows the 5-year plan, or yeah, my math is, I have no idea what my math is. And also that the university does more than that. So for example, really take clear and direct and urgent action before the climate crisis rather than the non-binding measures that it currently has in its current sustainability plan. Other suggestions like institutional carbon footprint audit, but all of those demands are being reiterated.
Oh, sorry. Interrupt you.
Yeah, and there's a lot of groups working on this, so let's support them, continue supporting them. That's it.
Thank you. Jane?
So I guess I'll be the stick in the mud here and say that it's not over. This is barely beginning. Yes, we've divested from pipelines and from oil sands, but Concordia's money is still being invested in things like the mining industry, which employs slave labor in South America. We still have funds being invested in the military and industrial complex. Divesting from these sorts of funds is important. It has to continue. And just because we won this battle doesn't mean that the war is over. We have to keep going, and we have to keep the Divest Concordia movement going towards these other funds that are exploiting marginalized peoples, not just in Canada, but outside of our borders.
nothing further on divestment, we can move to the PEQ changes. And Patrick, this one was yours as well.
I'm not sure if everybody knows what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the PEQ changes, but it's basically an accelerated program for international students to become permanent residents in Quebec. It's something that it affects at least 1,000 students at Concordia. So that was a whole thing last week. It was something that we were monitoring closely. I just want to say that, like, while they back down right now, the fight isn't over. So we're monitoring this very closely about what's going on with that, because from what it seems is that they're going to be coming back with a new proposal that might be just as hurtful to international students as the last one. So we're monitoring that closely. Anyways, just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. Is there any questions on the PEQ changes? Okay, so if not, did you want to talk about it? Okay, that's fine. Patrick?
I just want to say that, like, you guys warned us, which is totally fair. It's in the game, but one of my issues that I've been keeping under me is that, like, I get everybody's volunteer and they're putting in their time. They're all working full time, but an issue I personally have encountered is that people, when I needed them, didn't show up for committee meetings, and we also have been talking about absences. So I'd just like to say that if we're going to be holding executives to high enough standards, we should all be holding ourselves to the same standards. So that's all I wanted to say, and I have nothing further to comment.
Thank you. Salman?
Just want to mention a few things. A, that we are all here, as I said in my first meeting and first announcement, we are all here working, I would say working for students, by our own will. So, like, no one gave this job to us. We were elected out of like more than 31,000 students. So guys, we are here to work for them. Let's do that with a very respecting each other, and taking into account that we all are we are volunteers, and we agreed to give this time. It's not execs ask us, it's not like student ask us. We agreed on giving our time. Execs, yes, they are like a full-time employee of CSU, but yes, we have to take into consideration both the things. They are students too, and they're execs too. B, like for during a council meeting, yes, we are here for like from 6:30 to 11, but don't rush no one, like, because when we rush someone to make their points, make their motion, the discussion is not being done, then we discuss in group chats, and that is something like, it's not like, it heat up very quickly. So guys, give time to person. If someone is in hurry, you don't have to be here, just leave. I'm saying this because not pointing on anyone. If someone is hurry, just leave. You don't have to sit here till the end of the meeting. And also for the giving, what was my last point? I forgot.
You're about at 2 minutes, Joey.
Yeah, please, I forgot.
Okay, so as mentioned, I'm really not for docking pays. However, since we are in a spirit of warnings, I'd like to warn the executives, I guess, this would be a formal warning, take it as you want, that you are required to be here from beginning to end. If you need to use the washroom, you need like that break, it's fine. But like, no offense, thank you so much for getting the kombucha for the executives that did, but like, you can't just leave for like half an hour, 45 minutes, and then we have to change the whole agenda because some people aren't here. You can't go talk to your friends or whoever you're talking to for like half the meeting. Like, we need to be present. We're here to like get business done, and not having the full team makes it harder for us to accomplish our tasks. Not mentioning it's disrespectful to the people who are in the room, the councils, your other executives, the chair, the minute keeper, everyone. It's quite disrespectful for people to just leave as they wish. Like I said, I'm not gonna be wanting to motion to dock your pay if you leave for 15 minutes, but if you leave for almost half the meeting, then I will like strongly consider it. And I don't want to threaten everyone. I just want everyone to be respectful of everyone's jobs and presence here, because we're all here and we're all trying to like get things done the fastest way that we can. So, yeah, that's it.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
There's still announcements, and there's still a fairly full speakers list, and the meeting was moved to go to 11:37, so I'm gonna not.
That's okay, but I have a personal point of privilege
that's
then,
fine.
that I have to dismiss myself. Okay.
Yeah, like if you need to go, it's not that big a deal. It's just there's a speakers list. And it's,
We are done in less than an hour.
yeah, like we're gonna be done in 5 minutes. It's just, it's kind of unfair to people who put themselves on the list and then like we should just finish it maybe. Jared?
Yeah, okay, if I could. One thing that I also want to just mention on that though, well, one, just as someone on Loyola committee, it hasn't been due to a lack of trying, it's just a lack of our schedules, matching up. It's not that there are, any counselors that are like, I'm not gonna show up. It's like, we can't show up because I have class at this time. And then when I'm free, someone else has a class. I don't know what it's like though in other committees, so I won't speak on that. But the other thing I'm gonna say is like today, I was late. I had dress rehearsal and you guys didn't have to excuse me. You could have said, nope, you're part of council, show up. You could have done that and I would have had to live with that. And I, as a counselor, yeah, we could start doing that. We could start saying, show up on time or we aren't going to accept your absence unless it's a really, really understandable circumstance. We could totally do that. So even though we did make that to the executives, that we'll start talking pay, also to counselors, like we could just say no to your absence if we wanted. So just keep that in mind. It's not like counselors just willy-nilly get to show up late. We can totally say, you're late? No, we don't excuse you.
Just before everyone leaves, I just put myself on the speakers list because I had 3 quick points. Just about things that had come up during the meeting. So the chair's email is institutional memory because my email gets carried on from chair to chair to chair. So it's really good if you send documents to the chair at csu.qc.ca, specifically pertaining to documents and resignations and things like that, because then if anyone's doing archiving in the future, they can just go through my email and find all of that stuff, which is why it's always good to send it there. As well, about the sending out docs on the Friday and the Tuesday. So I know Chris had pointed out that yes, I'm a busy person, but the actual reason that I do that is because I used to send out documents as I got them, and then people would complain like, oh, you're sending out 6 emails before council and it's flooding my inbox and so forth. So now I send one out on Friday and then I wait until the last possible minute for people to submit and then send one out on Tuesday. But if you'd prefer to get them in sequence, please let me know. We don't have to talk about it now, but just in general. Or we can talk about getting a Google Drive and so forth, so forth. So
That's some bright talk.
On the top of their
yeah.
mention that I submitted on this date. Like that will be make your job easier and less, and their job easier.
Yeah, it was just like, anyway, we can talk about suggestions in the future. One last thing, so next week I am going to be away. It is my first vacation. It's my first week off since 2014 for this workaholic because I've been chair for so long and we do year round, so we don't get a vacation. That being said, I will be there for the meeting, but I won't be in Canada on Friday when we send the docs out. So if council is amenable to having an extra day, you might receive them. Saturday. I will. Thank you. Okay, folks. I just want you to know that you may receive them Saturday. I will do my best to get them to you Friday.
No, Saturday is good.
Okay.
Saturday is okay. She'll be on vacation. It's not her fault.
Anyways.
Council, enjoy your very well-deserved break.
Thank you, folks.
Where are you going?
Costa Rica. Yes. But ignore me. There's a speakers list still. There's a speakers list. Amma.
No, he doesn't want to speak.
Okay, Anna? You're on it too?
Yeah, I want to adjourn the meeting.
Oh, okay.
I called
Is
it
there
adjourn.
anyone who needs to say anything before we leave? Or at least did you have last words?
Yeah. Oh, okay. It's really quickly. Like we had the Loyola event, and I was really happy. And that's all.
Isaiah, last words.
Three quick points. Hannah and I coming together, poetry night, Hive, Meet Like an Idiot, double booked it, Reggie's BIPOC, so pick and choose, come to both. Free food and alcohol at both is served, so SIP certified people are gonna be there and bar-attended staff, and as much as like it may feel like a personal attack or whatnot, at the end of the day, this is just council. Once the meeting ends, hopefully we'll be friends. Who knows? All right, bye.
All right, do we have a second?
Everyone second.
I am opposed to the motion.
It's not debatable.
Oh.
That's true.